call to order the Budget Subcommittee meeting. And this is a dual posting. When we get one more member, we'll have a quorum of the full committee, and we'll announce that quorum and convene. We have a quorum. All right, so at this point, it's just a timing at 10 after. You'll be able to call the full meeting to order. Can somebody explain to me the 613 document? Is that the proposed legislation?
Yes. 13.
That's that legislation.
Oh. Yeah, I do believe. That's all we need, right?
This is the version that Trump does. It's very slow.
It was section 3. This is section 3.
Oh, I have it here already.
I thought I saw.
So, Pat, did you have anything in mind on this item, discussion of the document?
Okay, when I put this on the agenda, I asked Mary Jane if she could come and join us, and she said she would love to, and so would the gentleman to her, right next to her, whose name is Jay Sullivan, and maybe you can introduce yourselves and tell everyone who and what and where you are, and help us on this discussion, because I just think we need you to lead us through it and tell us what we're doing and how we're going and how to get there. Excuse me?
Do you need to wait till 6:10? So why don't we wait 5 minutes and then we can, because your full school committee meeting was scheduled at 6:10.
Exactly, but it's also on the budget subcommittee.
So-
As long as those who are not on the budget subcommittee don't
Okay.
express an opinion, we'll be all right. So those
Yeah.
who are not on the budget subcommittee, hold your fire.
For 5 minutes.
It might be easier to wait 5 minutes. I don't
Okay.
want to curtail anybody's
All right,
questions.
that works for us. Maybe we can, see what, yeah, let's finish, see what else there is on.
Let's go get coffee.
One thing
That I can do, I know, in the mean. We have norms for a school committee meeting, and I think these are good to just remind ourselves. So often in the heat of the moment, we forget what this is all about. The school committee acknowledges that a school committee meeting is a meeting of the school committee members that's held in public, not a public meeting. All school committee members should feel free to express their opinions and beliefs about issues. Discussions will be open and encourage candor and assume positive intent. School committee members agree to focus on issues rather than personalities. The committee will be open to new and veteran members' ideas and opinions. Respect each other and their opinions. Encourage debate and differing points of view and speak with care and respect. We should debate issues, not one another. Let's build trust. Avoid words and actions that create a negative impression of an individual, the school committee, or the district. We should work to build trust between and among school committee members and the superintendent or superintendent designee by treating everyone with dignity and respect, even in times of disagreement. 2 minutes to spare, and we gained a member on the way, so life is good.
Pat?
Is this the document
Yes.
that you're referring to?
Yes.
I've got a question. All right. Well, do you want the full committees, or do you want the budget committee's recommendation on this? I got one for a recommendation. I got an email today from somebody at Maya's Health Insurance, and they're wondering if we'd like to pick up where we left off. When it became evident that we cannot change our health insurance and our group, the Hampshire Trust, could not change it because of failure to vote certain measures by this committee and others, we did not follow through looking at changing health insurance because it wasn't going to be possible. Maya's contacted me as budget chair with respect to FY20 and could use some direction. They need our loss runs for, I think, the last 24 months, and I believe that order's been in for a while. So this is getting out ahead of FY19, but in a way that we ought to. The problem remains that this is another self-insurance scheme, and I don't mean to denigrate it by saying scheme, but it's different from totally premium-based insurance. And it means that if we change from Hampshire to, say, Maya, there's an overlap period of time where we're self-insuring claims that the original date was during the original insurance, but it doesn't just roll over as in a premium base. So and I think the term they use is roll-off costs. So we may look at this and say the risk is too high to engage in this transitional self-insurance. They do in this email offer to finance that estimated cost, and we ought to look at that, is my opinion.
So,
Jeannie.
David, are we talking health insurance?
We're talking
costs
health
that we would be self-insured for?
We already are.
For health insurance?
For health insurance, it's a technicality. There's basically totally premium-based plans, and almost nobody in public employment is in that anymore. It's so expensive.
I don't know what that means.
So,
I'm very confused.
would you like me to pursue the possibility of health insurance cost savings through the through Maya, the Mass Interlocal Insurance Agency?
Yeah. That's
Doesn't
not
do anything
gonna
to
cost
approve
us
it.
anything to look at it.
I have a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you wait till the overseer comes on board? Because then the overseer can go through and give some direction and do some cost comparisons. That's just a suggestion.
Sounds good to me.
And in the meantime, maybe have a working group with the school committee so that they understand all the ramifications of this. Because it sounds like there's some confusion around the table regarding terms and what they may mean. So it's always helpful if everybody understands what they may end up voting on to some degree, so that, well, no, seriously, it's like.
Without question, yes.
Some of these issues can be very confusing, so I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands, because obviously, health insurance is a budget buster, as we all well know, and I think they need to make sure that they're aware of all the ramifications of these things. So.
You can call the regular meeting to order.
Give this to Jeff. Premium based.
Can you pass these down there? They're extras. I'd like to call our meeting to order. And as I said before, we now have Jay Handy and Jay Sullivan and Mary Jane Handy. Woo! Got my tongue tangled up. That have joined us tonight to help us with discussions in regard to our deficit spending loan and all the problems that are surrounding us. And if you could take over, we would absolutely love it.
You don't pay me enough.
Sorry. We've got a few,
Yeah, exactly.
we've got a few jelly beans, that's about it.
For Maya.
So the first thing was a discussion of the document. I have a question. The first item on your agenda was a discussion of the 613 document. Is that the legislation?
Yeah.
Okay, we weren't sure. We were not 100% sure.
So I guess that was going to be my first question, is going to be, are there issues that people seem to have with the legislation? We sent that out well over a week ago, I believe.
613.
Okay, yeah. So, if is there questions that people have? I want to make sure that people aren't misunderstanding what the legislation states. So I'm certainly here to answer any kind of questions that you may have.
I don't think we understood what it was going to have in it, and so I think it took us a few minutes just to figure out yes, no, and maybe, so.
Well, I think the main issues are, number one, it's gonna be like you're gonna have 10 years to pay back this amount that you're borrowing, to start with. Number two, one of the things that was put in there that during the time you're paying back this loan, Section 3B of your regional agreement is null and void, which is basically is the part that says that if you live in a town, you're intended to go to school in that town. I think that's the way the regional agreement actually states it. I think that's the actual language. Intending, and I'm not sure is forced to be actually, but whatever, it is what it is. But just to kind of give the committee and the commissioner some flexibility during this time. And again, we all know that nothing's going to happen right away, as Jeff Wolfson talked about when he was here for the last meeting that we attended. But again, I'm sure that the committee and the communities are going to be looking at various options of how to maybe consolidate and reallocate resources and what have you. So we want that to be a thoughtful process. We want the committee to have ample time to do that. So to me, those are the two. And obviously the third point is obviously the fact that there'll be a fiscal overseer that would be reporting to the commissioner, that would work with the district and be an advisor to the district as well, and advisor to the commissioner, to kind of keep the commissioner informed of what's happening in the district. And again, it's a resource that you should use, obviously, to help you in you know, talking about whether it's health insurance or other issues. You know, it's another part of infrastructure that we'd like to see, obviously, in the district, to make sure that they have sufficient management capacity to manage the resources.
Yeah. When do you expect the overseer to come and join us? We've heard all kinds of different names, different times.
Again, the legislation has to pass first, and the legislation was filed today, from what I understand. So I don't know how long it's going to take that process to move forward, but you know.
Do you have an idea?
I think we would hope that it would pass by the end of the legislative session, which is the end of July. But I would stay in contact with your legislative delegation. We'll be in touch with the legislative delegation as well, just to make sure. I guess Senator Goby on the Senate side is kind of helping out with this, so that should be helpful as well.
We had heard earlier it would be in June, and then last week someone told us it would be not until October. So we're sort of wondering, you know, if it would be
I certainly
sometime
hope that
before
that's not the
October.
case, because we need to really kind of move forward. There's a critical nature to some of this in terms of timeliness and what have you. And I think, I don't want to speak for DOR, but I think both our agency and DOR would like to see this happen before the summer recess, if at all possible. But again, we have little control over that to some degree. But at least I did hear from our director of partnerships this afternoon that the legislation was filed. I don't have a bill number yet, but it was filed. So again, if there's any tweaks or anything that has to happen while it's going through the process, we'll deal with that. But I think initially our office was waiting to hear back if there was any suggestions or any changes in language, and we haven't heard that. So we basically said, go ahead and file it, and you know, if there's issues, we'll kind of deal with them. I just as soon at least have it there and filed, so it's on the agenda to some degree, so we can hopefully get it done, hopefully before the end of the legislative session. So.
Are we going where no one has gone before in terms of future deficit funding?
No. No. There is either municipalities or regional school districts that have both had kind of similar circumstances. And again, it depends on the time of year where this situation comes to light. If the situation comes to light near the end of the year, like, well, I mean, we knew about the school lunch deficit for quite some time here, but what we didn't know was a lot of the other things that came about as a result of the E&D certification for FY17, And then when DOR found that, there was some serious issues, and obviously the letter came from Mary Jane. And that, we really kind of ramped things up as of then, but that was in the spring. So, and we didn't even know what FY18 looked like. We knew what FY17 was, because the auditors had come in and taken a look at that, but that made us really concerned about FY18. So, and again, by the time we got out here and everything else, it was June. So it's, if you're that, and depending on where you are on the legislative calendar, that kind of makes a difference too, in terms of when things can occur. So.
I don't really care, Martha. I just had a question about, I don't think this works. It does? Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I have a question about section 3 in this document that we're looking at. Specifically, the legislative document, an act relative to the financial condition. So I just wanted to know what the mechanics are. For example, the following actions shall be subject to the written approval of the commissioner, and then there's a lot that have listed. And I'm looking specifically at execution of new or amended collective bargaining agreements, because we're now and have been in the process of setting a new contract, collective bargaining for a 3-year contract with the teachers union and also the paraprofessional unit. So I didn't know if that was something that we would not be able to pursue further until we have the financial overseer. Is this person who is coming going to be actually
Well, they wouldn't be
working
sitting
with
on,
us on, not sitting in on bargaining?
They wouldn't sit on bargaining, but obviously they'd advise the district and take a look at.
That's what's due.
Yeah.
That's going to hold it up.
Well, yeah, but the issue is it hasn't passed yet. So
Right,
the
that's what I'm
question,
saying.
yeah.
That will hold it up.
But, I guess if I was going to make a comment, I'd say, you want to be able to have a kind of resource to be able to answer these kinds of questions. So, is there a downside to delaying the contract negotiations? I guess I want to ask that question.
Well, it's my
I-
understanding, I believe, that the current contract would continue as long
Right.
as a new contract had not been signed.
That's generally the case with collective bargaining agreements, but yeah.
Right. So,
So,
but
so-
your advice would be, or actually as part of the legislation would be that,
part of legislation would be you can't
can't-
execute a contract without the commissioner approving it.
okay, but there's nobody from the department, from DESI, sitting in with, I guess my question is,
We're a local
when
control
we're meeting,
state. We're a local control state.
Right, so-
The commissioner.
so if we
will-
made a contract, let's say we did go ahead with collective bargaining, which we've been advised not to, but let's say,
Yeah.
just for the sake of argument, we did make changes to the contract, then that would have to be approved by,
If this legislation had passed by the time
Right.
you agreed to the contract, yes, the commissioner would have to approve it. The fiscal overseer would make recommendation to the commissioner whether the commissioner should approve the contract or not.
okay. So it really needs to be done in conjunction with the,
We would hope to,
Fiscal
we would hope to
overseer.
do that. We would hope to do that. 'cause
yes, I
obviously-
think that's the best idea, but I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that, what the mechanics of that were. Okay,
And
thank you.
generally, it's not different from any regional school district who doesn't have a budget as of July 1st. The law basically states if you don't have a budget as of July 1st, you get a 1/12 budget. And then if you still, and we give you time to finally iron out the differences in your budget, but if you still don't have a budget by December 1st, the commissioner basically is in fiscal control of your district through the balance of the year. So these same type of things apply in that case as well, if you don't have a budget by December 1st. So, the commissioner has to approve any contract over 25,000.
Right, right,
All,
everything is listed.
line item transfers, all the stuff that's listed here, the commissioner has that control. But again, we work very closely with the fiscal overseer In other circumstances where this has occurred, we have good communication usually with the fiscal overseer. They submit documents to us electronically. If we have questions, we have a phone call with them, whatever. We iron out those differences. And the turnaround is very quick if it needs to be in terms of those approvals. So it wouldn't hold back the district, I wouldn't think.
Okay, so the key is getting the fiscal overseer here.
The key is getting the legislation
physically.
passed.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
okay. Okay, thank you.
So you have the ability to actually spend money in FY19 other than, well, again, we have to know what the budget's going to be too, to some degree, so.
So I'm wondering, given the pending relationship, where we're going to have a great deal of oversight of whether DESI or DOR would have advice for us right now as we're looking at contracting with the superintendent and the part-time, full-time with business or finance.
Director of Finance.
Director of Finance and me.
Yeah, so we're in a position, I missed 2 important meetings today, so I'm kind of speaking theoretically here, but we're looking at a couple of important contractual relationships that far, I hope, before we have this legislation.
I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate the question. But from what we've understood from the last time we were here, you were going to have a part-time superintendent and a part-time school business official. Now, prior to that, you had a full-time superintendent and no business official. So, as far as I'm concerned, even with a part-time business official, you're better off having a part-time one than not having one at all. Mary Jane raised an issue, and I agree with the same issue. In the on July 1, the part-time school business official is going to be starting, right? And how many days a week are they going to be working?
30 hours.
So it's a
Well,
4-day week?
We're still working on that. We're actually looking for some advice from you or recommendations, because there is some flexibility in the number of hours and the salary.
Can I get on the salary?
Go right ahead.
I have a question. On the salaries, your budget is not balanced now for fiscal year 19. Am I wrong?
Unless
Okay.
you consider use of $450,000 borrowed money.
No, not counting borrowed money.
No, our budget is not borrowed.
Okay, it's not balanced.
Not balanced.
So now I've been sitting here for a few minutes listening to things that you're going to add to an unbalanced budget. So you're in the deficit now for fiscal year 19. You got collective bargaining increases. You want to increase your budget for your superintendent, and you want to increase your budget for your business manager. And when we were here a few weeks ago, I heard from the town saying that they can't afford the loan. So a $2 million loan for 10 years is $200,000 a year plus interest on their assessments. I'm just stating a fact here. Also, you're moving your business manager over to, your treasurer over to business manager. What are you going to do with your treasurer? Who's going to do your treasurer function?
We have not met that yet.
By
But
law,
we
it
need
has
to,
be a
it has to be
separate
2
function.
people, yeah.
Yeah, by law.
I mean, even if it's 1 day a week, that's fine, you know.
Can I? Stacy Masso has agreed to. The mic, please. Whoops, sorry. Stacy Masso has agreed to come in and act as our 1 day a week treasurer, but only on a temporary basis. Give us some time to find a good candidate.
She was your prior treasurer, if I remember
She was the
correctly.
one that came in to help straighten out. She works for the COG, Franklin County.
Council on Government.
Yes, yeah.
So she would have to be in place on July 1st, and her name has to be signed, her signature is on the checks. No longer Tanya, if
Right.
Tanya becomes business manager. That's Mass General Law.
A good practice as well.
There was a reason for that a long time ago.
So can I ask another? Well, so you're pointing out again, the hole we're in for fiscal 19. I had brought up the subject of closing our smallest elementary school, which is Pearl Roads Elementary School in Leiden, at the meeting where we were on the hot seat under the lights and on the stage, and was told that I was rushing it and that there was plenty of time. And this isn't a new, we have looked at this repeatedly as the numbers have gone down over the years. I've been on the committee in the past. We've had 2, I think, in the last 10 years. We've started to gather the information, and now you're reminding us that in that legislation, we don't have to get approval to close the school. So I'm looking for advice along that line.
Are you asking us how you can close the school?
If, not how, but if.
I think, well, again, if this committee can do what it so chooses in terms of, again, the wording of the regional agreement says intention, that it's the intention of students. Intention is different from must. So, they pay lawyers a lot more money an hour than they pay me, but I think that's an issue that could be discussed. But again, I think Jeff Wilson did not want to push that issue when he was here. If the locals want to push that issue, that's up to you. That's fine. That just means, there's a potential for at least a little bit of savings. Again, it's not a panacea, but one of the things that I've learned in my many years in school finance is, if you want to know what the best school in your district is, it's the one you're trying to close. That just is the nature of the beast in terms of closing schools. So, unfortunately, and I understand people are passionate about their local schools. I totally understand that, so it makes complete sense. But I think that, again, we'll support the committee in any way that we can, but again, this is going to have to be a committee decision and a community decision.
Can I say one more thing? Well, our part-time Leiden principal, who's also the principal at Bernardston, did a terrific job in the last newsletter of saying to the parents, it's been a lot of change this year and a lot of discussion, and it doesn't matter what building you're in. We're all part of the same district, and it was excellent. And I thought that's a good thing to end the year on. People can think about it and, go, yeah, maybe my kids would be better off in a grade where there isn't just 2 or 3 kids, so.
Okay, so I have a question to ask. Last week at a school committee meeting, budget school committee similar to tonight, there was a vote that was taken to approve a $450,000 deficit loan to repay for this year. How does that fall into the deficit loan legislation that we have asked for? I think people were confused. They just weren't quite sure what they were voting on and talking about. We need to get some clarity on that.
Well, again, I guess I have a question. Does that mean that you were voting on an FY19 budget that was $450,000 more than the budget that was approved?
I'm not sure what the thought was. Committee?
That was less in revenue than the budget we approved by $450,000. It used borrowed money as a source of funds.
Again, were you increasing the budget?
Well, that's similar to your 18 budget.
Yes, exactly. Well stated.
So was your fiscal year 19 budget, bottom line, $10,000 more than the 18 budget? Is that number still the same number?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but we didn't know if that was
But,
Legitimate.
however, your revenue was equaled that budget, and your revenue was I thought was pretty realistic. So where's the additional $400,000 coming in?
Borrowing.
No, borrowing. So you're increasing your budget.
You're basically increasing your budget, which was my initial question.
Your total expenses. You're increasing your total expenses by $450,000.
No.
No, our total expenses remain 14,077,067,000.
Well, no, because of all these proposals, it's,
14,077,000.
we were short $381,377. When we added in the correct health insurance figure, separation costs, the proposed increase in the superintendent's salary,
The last
they're-
one.
I've got both.
The budget we were given on March 8th, the final budget that we were given the night we were here, that was a March 8th final budget. It was $14,077,538.
That's the same number. Same
Right.
number.
But
Things have been moved around, but.
That's the same
bottom
number.
line number.
So if that is your bottom line, and your revenue equaled that,
Well, I'm not sure the revenue
The
does
revenue
it.
didn't.
So the revenue is
No,
what,
the revenue-
13,700 or 13,600?
no. I thought the revenue equaled that number, that I was,
we were okay on revenue for that number. It's the problem is that we're finding that those budget items aren't adequate.
and that $14,077,538 showed, if I remember correctly, a health insurance number that was like $400,000 less.
Shows the
2,408.
This was 1876 at that point, because here was your 10,000.
I got the $1 million figure, but I don't have that.
Okay, this is some more, David. This maybe has some more figures. The health insurance one, I'll look for right now.
Yeah.
Mary Jane, the health insurance cost was way under budgeted.
Right, however, if you're going to increase that, then I'm saying is the bottom line of your budget increasing?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what, yeah.
Is that, do you have the, does somebody have the number?
What they passed out last week says 14,354,915.
14,354,000? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Well, and we're,
354.
we have yet to revise the revision.
That's not at the end of the budget.
So therefore, your budget has increased.
Right.
Well, I thought that was, we're gonna try to work on that tonight, aren't we? I mean,
And therefore, they don't have a balanced budget. Therefore, you don't have a balanced budget.
That's why I brought up the question, because that
14,000,300,
raised
yeah.
questions in my head, and I needed to have some help.
Well, I guess I would say that the only way that the committee, well, the committee can revote its budget to this 14,354 number. But then it would be expecting the towns to come up with the additional money. And from what I heard the last time I was here, I'm not sure that's gonna happen.
That was already rejected in a vote last week.
By the subcommittee?
It was
Rejected
a motion was made in the full committee meeting a week ago to ask the towns for half of the debt, the expected debt for FY19. That would be approximately $200,000 to go back to the towns for a supplemental amount. And the other amount would be in the debt, part of the loan from the state. That motion failed. And so then the second motion passed, which was to, what, $450,000. That was up to $450,000 for FY19, in addition to the 1 million for FY17 and FY18. We did
No,
try
I
to go to
understand that, and
those.
again, we've been dancing on the head of a pin on this topic because,
Right.
you know, I remember people, I just remember selectmen and people from the town side saying, you're letting people deficit borrow, and I understand that that's, because this budget that we had is a piece of garbage, it wasn't worth the paper it was printed on, yeah, we are. We're stuck with what we have. This was a piece of crap, unfortunately. And we had to make sure that this budget was real, and that's what we asked the committee to do since we left, is take a look at this budget to see if it's real and make it real so we would know what was needed for the kids in FY19. Now again, we promised, I think Jeff Wilson promised, I said, not to be a heavy in terms of recommending immediate school closures. Again, those decisions are up to the local committee, again, but the issue is, we didn't know what was needed for FY19 for this district. We had no idea, and I don't think the committee knew what they needed for FY19. So we were hopeful, that people would look through this. We were under the impression that the district staff would look through this and come up with what they actually needed to get through the fiscal year. Now, it sounds like that, you went through that exercise, you came up with a number of 14,354,915, is that correct? Correct. No, I'm seeing no, I'm hearing yes. I don't
We
know.
came up with additions that came from the administrators of $446,642. That would be actual money that we needed to make it work
Well, wait a minute,
for
wait a
next
minute,
year's
wait a minute.
budget.
The budget we have is 14,077, and then the other number is 14,354. That's only $280,000 difference.
Right, and I think it was,
Not 400,000 difference. So I'm confused again.
yeah.
Please,
We're also projecting a shortage in the choice in and out of 104,000.
Before raises in, right.
That was the other thing we discussed last week,
okay.
which brought it up from the 277 to 381.
Together multiple times for many hours to try and get to
All right, so that's
what the towns voted for. And we presented that budget 2 meetings ago. And then last week, a different budget appeared at the table without our knowledge. So there,
And what was the origin of that budget? Where did it come from?
the treasurer,
The financial department.
Wasn't the treasurer part of the meetings that took place?
no,
Okay.
she was for a few of them, yes, but none of us had seen this until that night. So that's why I asked which budget people are referring to.
May I ask you, Gail, what your admin budget was? And the administrators?
It's around the same thing. We stopped and brought to the committee options, but it was $14,362,870, which was a negative 285,332.
What was the?
What was the delta?
285,332.
And bottom of Gale's.
Well, obviously, these budgets have to be reconciled. I guess if I was gonna make a suggestion, I would have you start the business, well, it's water over the bridge at this point, but I would have had you start the business manager immediately. You've got no infrastructure here in terms of fiscal staff, and it's really problematic. And this is just a blatant example of that.
Why don't you start with the real number of what the town voted this year at the annual town meeting for the budget? That's the real number. Right.
That's the number that's authorized so far. Is that the number that you need to run the school district? I think we disagree, sir.
No, the towns don't vote a budget, the towns vote our.
Towns vote an assessment, I understand. I understand.
But your local aid, excluding state aid, your other resources are very slim.
Very slim.
Very, very slim. You have a very tight budget. So you have to remember what you have for fiscal year 19 for a budget. If you go through and make changes, like adding salaries and everything else, that's your base now for 19, for 20, unless there are one-time revenue, or one-time expenses in that. So that's why it's really important that we try to get the overseer in as quick as we can, the legislation in as quick as, passed as fast as we can. So that you have as much of this fiscal year to go through and make some decisions that will affect next year.
And I understand that you may have an approved budget, that what the town's approved at this point in time. And I think what the committee needs to do is let the communities know in order to run in fiscal 19 with that budget, what you would need to do. You need to convince your stakeholders of what it would take to run with a budget of 14,077,538. What impact would that have on teaching positions? What impact would that have on other positions? They need to be aware of that. Because, in essence, what we're saying is because this happened so late in the year, we had no reliable information to rely on. We knew that the budget that was passed was $10,000 more than last year. But unfortunately, we had no faith in those numbers. So we didn't know what the intent of the committee is, what the intent of, the communities are, and we have to know that. So those are the tough decisions that are gonna have to be made. And the first decision that have to be made is you've got a budget of 14,077. What does that mean to this district? Is there gonna be carnage? What does that carnage look like? People need to understand that. The taxpayers need to understand that.
So that we've justified deficit spending, or so that we've found a way?
Well, again, I'm not a Pollyanna. I figured if we didn't know what the FY19 budget was, that we were probably going to deficit spend in FY19. It is what it is. I mean, because we could not rely on the numbers. Now, again, unless the school committee feels like they can live within that 14,077, that's great. Keep your town, some of your towns will be happy about that. Some of the parents may not be, but some of the townspeople will. Again, you're the duly elected body that's responsible here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, sir.
But you're not going to be able to deficit spend until the legislation is passed.
That's correct. Your budget right now is 14,077, that's correct. Unless you change your budget, that's correct. So you can't pass a budget. You can't pass a contingency budget based on borrowing that you don't have authorization to borrow yet. And that's what this legislation allows you to do. But I'll be quite honest with you, I expected that this is where we would end up.
We both
I mean, I think we're under that impression that it is what it is. And again, Pioneer is not the only place where this has happened. In places where there's deficits, they've had to kind of somehow ride it over 2 years. It has happened. It's not unique. So, I'm not saying it happens all the time. We hate to see it happen. Not that we don't like coming out and seeing your friendly faces, but, it does happen, occasionally. And we have to manage it and understand and work with it, so.
I know, I'm on the negotiations.
But I just thought it was foolhardy to think that a $10,000 budget, $10,000 over last year, was going to be okay for the district to continue to operate.
You are not alone. There was a lot of us that didn't think it was going to work.
But you're the ones that have to tell the towns and the taxpayers what's going to happen if you do have that budget.
Exactly.
That's the committee's job. And that's what I was hopeful, that the district staff could be able to put something together and say, this is what we're gonna have to do in the event that we do that.
And I think they have.
We did.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I gotta differ. The district staff has answered the call and made suggestions and been very firm to say we do not support these for their educational outcomes. They're not recommended, they're doing the horrendous task. I was the only one that voted against the deficit, spending $450,000. And I did so because we're using our credit card to buy groceries and we're baking in this level of expense.
You've been using your credit card in the school lunch program for about 7 years now. Where you been with that? So let's get real. At least with the borrowing option, you get to pay off that deficit over 10 years. So, and I understand that, I mean, the school lunch deficit was ignored for quite some time, sir. It was. And I think, I understand. But, that was in the audits every year in terms of the school lunch deficit.
And letters from the.
Well, and the towns voted to resolve it this year. We had a plenty of run-up to it, but the towns have voted to resolve the school lunch
But
debt.
to be honest with you, if this legislation passes, they'll be able to finance that over 10 years as opposed to having to come up with all the money at once. So it's a little easier for them to pay it. And it's not like the state's gonna kill you with interest, but, there is gonna be interest payments, but, and I understand, I understand the whole credit card analogy, I get that. But considering where you are, I'm not sure, how you move forward.
Well, I'll say I'm incredibly impressed by my two colleagues from Leiden here for doing what I did with respect to Warwick and paid quite a political price for. You guys are openly talking about closing that school. I know from my standpoint, Leiden ought to be agreeable to such a thing. And that's not exactly going to be the way if the legislation passes, but that is a clear place. There's a real concern here about taking necessary draconian measures and exacerbating the problem. If we could save over $300,000 by eliminating sports and probably eliminate a whole bunch of kids coming to our school at the same time.
Yeah.
Why we decided against it.
That would ruin the district.
We keep looking at closing the Leiden school as a terrible thing, but I think if we look at what's best for when there's that few students, if you look at the studies, and I've got some that show there's kind of a sweet spot where there's, not too many kids, but also not too few in a classroom, it's better not to have that. Educationally, socially, it's the parents that resist the change. Those kids, if they go to Bernardston in a few days, they're going to come skipping home. I've got a new best friend. I've got, a gym, which Leiden does not have. We can also stay within our district agreement. If this committee votes, a majority of us vote to close the school, and we ask the 4 towns to have a special town meeting, and a majority of them pass it, according to Section 9, we will be following the district agreement, not having to use the legislation to jump over it, so to speak. And I think the towns will support it. I think Leiden will support it. I mean,
It seems like we've been getting a lot of conflicting opinions and advice from different places. Peggy has presented this very clearly, and yet our legal advice at the end of May, or when the last time you were here, was not even to try to close the schools that quickly. And the same thing seems to be happening. Last week, one of our members spoke with, I'm not sure who the 2 people were that we were on the phone with, but they were advising us Mass Association.
Of Regional Schools, Jim
Okay.
Hemmen.
And we were advised,
Steve Evans.
Steve, excuse me.
okay, we were advised that the best thing to do would be to deficit spend for 1 year so that we could not decimate the district too much. So, anyway, we discussed it as a committee, and even though Peggy presented this idea last week very well, it was decided not to pursue that. So we're looking for outside advice, but we're not always getting the same thing. The same thing is happening with,
If I could,
okay.
no, Jeff Wilson was here not too long ago. He's the Deputy Commissioner of Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. He made a recommendation to all of you and said that to delay discussions because it will distract from the problem at hand. The first problem you have is you have a deficit. All right? You have 2 months before this is already July next week. You have 2 months before school starts. You also have a deficit, and you have school starting, and you have a new superintendent coming on, a new business manager, and you're bringing back a new treasurer. I don't know how much more turmoil you need for the district.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a school business manager for 15 years. If you did that to me even after I was there for 15 years, I probably would have pulled my hair out, you know, because there's just so much going on.
I did it when I had it.
All right. So again, he did make that recommendation, and I would go through, to be honest with you, when the associate commissioner goes through and makes that recommendation, that has some weight on it.
So where do you wanna go from here, people?
I have a couple questions, if I could. I did come. First of all, I hope everybody knows who I am. I'm not sure if everybody does. I'm Mary Jane Handy. I'm with the Division of Local Services. And this is Jay Sullivan, who is the Associate Commissioner at Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. My questions have, first one, of course I'm financial, so I'm going to ask a couple things. Have all the towns paid their June assessments? Does anybody know if that's happened?
As far as I know, they have.
Our person's not here.
Could you find out and make sure that it has come in? Because you need that money to pay off that RAN at the end of the week.
I know that Tanya made the phone calls because we did not, the last time when she was in last week, we did not have all the assessments in. I know she made phone calls, and I know she was working on getting them.
Okay, however, I think that because there is no superintendent, somebody's going to have to make sure that they get in. Because your RAN, that's a revenue anticipation note, your loan is due at the end of the week.
Tanya was being very adamant and very persistent in trying to get that.
I mean, to be honest with you, even if they have to be hand-delivered.
One was.
Yeah.
One was.
Yeah,
She swung by and picked one up.
this is critical, okay? And then also to make sure that the RAN is scheduled to be paid. All right, the other thing that I have is that I have been asked, Pat, if you could send a formal letter to myself requesting a 6-month advance on the district state aid. And it's to alleviate the cash flow problem. The reason being is this legislation has to go through, get voted on, and then you have to come up to the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to get approval to go out for borrowing. So and that board only meets once a month. So we want to give you a little cushion to go through, so it gives us some time. So what we've done is my boss, the Deputy Commissioner, has gone through and has asked for a 6-month cash advance. So that would be a cash advance for fiscal year 19.
But you'd end up paying some of your fiscal 18 things like teacher summer pay.
It's a cash flow. It's just an
It's a
advance.
cash flow issue, yeah.
It's just like, And it's not part of the deficit financing. Because that deficit financing is based on the legislation, we don't want to take any chances. What happens if this legislation goes through and gets delayed? You have bills to pay. You have the first payroll is July 13th. I need to make sure you have enough money in the bank to pay your bills. All right, so it's critical if that letter could get out. And it has to be, can't be emailed, I have to have a signed copy, and it has to be sent to the office. Okay? It has to be a wet signature.
And does that have to be on Pioneer Stationery?
Yes, please.
So we voted that 450,000 last week. Where do we go from here? Do we add to that vote? I mean, I just don't know what our next step is.
Well, 450,000 is really meaningless because you don't have a
Exactly.
revenue source to pay it from, right?
Exactly.
So, right now you have a budget of 14,077,538.
Right.
That's what you
Settled
have.
on that. We have two different budgets we need to reconcile.
But there was one that was passed. It was
Well, yeah.
$10,000 more than what you had last year.
Exactly.
At least you have authority to spend. So, you know,
Okay.
it's not like you have to shut your doors as of June 30th.
But we do indeed need a vote to do, oops, I see Brenda. Yes, Brenda.
So, I need to speak to Mary Jane about because Suzanne's upstairs right now working on payroll, trying to get closed out this year and loading in next year. I handle accounts payable. So I have a bill that's due for July 1st that has to do with Franklin Regional Retirement. Am I able to pay that bill for July 1st? And the rest of the bills that I would be trying to pay utility bills in July for July 15th, so that we don't have problems with our utility bills. Am I able to pay and release those checks in July?
I will go through what we're doing right now is my boss has a meeting on Friday. It has already been, all the paperwork has been put through. Just to let you know how this works. I work for the Division of Local Services, which is under the Department of Revenue. My boss had to go to the Commissioner of Revenue to explain the situation. The Commissioner of Revenue had to go to the Secretary of Admin and Finance that reports to the Governor. All right, this is how this gets done. I have asked for 6 months state aid advance. As soon as he comes out, if we would need the letter, the letter I need is so I can get the money released. He will get approval. He's anticipating getting approval on Friday for the money. So as soon as we go through, we've had a meeting earlier this afternoon before I came here. We're all waiting for them to go through, that being the Secretary of Admin and Finance to give his blessing. And then with that letter, we'll go through and process the advance. And the Comptroller's office, which works for the treasurer, will wait for that letter to release the money. So that's why it's imperative. I would also recommend that you send it priority mail to my office. And my staff would be watching for that letter if I'm not in, which I'll be in anyway next week. Also, by putting it priority, we're not relying on the mail, the regular postal mail to snail mail. All right.
And also, and I do have the RAN, it's on this check run. School committee will be signing off on the warrant.
Do you have enough money to pay the RAN?
Tanya was working on that.
Yeah. So the RAN has to get paid first.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And she knows that. She was, like I said, she was very diligent working on the assessments to make sure that we have the money to cover that RAN and payroll.
Yeah. So Friday is, she's coming in on Friday?
She'll be in tomorrow.
Okay, I'm not in tomorrow, so, and most of my staff is not in, unfortunately. We have a staff day tomorrow. But the key is to make sure you have your assessments and all your town assessments, and make sure that they're physically in the bank so that you have that coverage. From what I understand from the discussion today, is the bank that is holding the note, that revenue anticipation note, is the same bank that you have your accounts in.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
we will be handling
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do we have a sense of when we'll get final cherry sheet figures?
As soon as the budget gets passed. Your guess is as good as ours. I mean, the governor's putting in a 1/12 budget, so that speaks volumes to me that conference committee, House and Senate aren't simpatico, I would say.
I just wondered what the normal timetable is for receiving state aid. You're saying 6-month advance? When-
Comes out monthly.
It normally comes out monthly.
Oh, that's how it works?
Yeah.
State aid comes out monthly. However, your monthly state aid is a little over $300,000. $300,000 for the month of July will not make your payroll. It will just barely make your accounts payable. Your payroll is approximately, for the month of July, if I remember correctly, it's about $800,000. We have to give you an advance, and we've worked hard at this.
I see. Okay. Yes.
My question is to you, Mary Jane. So this 6-month advance precludes the treasurer from going out and getting another rand come the 1st of July.
I'm not sure you'd be able to.
We don't expect you're going to be able to be honest with you. That's why there's $2.2 million being as a state advance. You also have deficit spending that's going to make up that $1 million.
But they've been doing this for we don't know how many years, as the public, we don't know how many years.
The reason you've had a rand, to be honest with you, and I can tell you what, you're one of the very few that ends up having a rand for a regional school district. The reason being is your assessments from the towns are paid 5 times a year. The first one is in August. The last one is June 30th. The problem you had this year, and it's worked the last few years, the only deficit you had prior to fiscal year 17 was the school lunch deficit, which was a couple $100,000. The problem you have is you overspent your budget $1 million. You know, at the end of fiscal year 7, you had the 200 and some odd $1,000. I'd have to look at my notes, but you had 200 and some odd $1,000 school lunch deficit for years prior to 2016. 2017, you had a revenue shortfall, meaning your budget, the amount that you budgeted for revenue, because in Massachusetts, your revenue and your expenses have to equal. Okay? Just like your home budget. What happens when your expenses are higher than the amount of money coming in? Okay? You could put whatever number you want as money coming in, but if that doesn't happen and you spend that budget, you spend all those expenses, you have a deficit, and that's what happened. So you had a $670,000 deficit for fiscal year 17. This is, I'm talking off the top of my head without looking at numbers. I should be pretty close. I sleep with these numbers in my head. You know, So then in fiscal year 18, when we came out, when we didn't know about 17 being a problem, we knew school lunch. We knew you kept going through and spending about $30,000 more in school lunch every year. You have to realize, I only started in October 2015. So I have been sending letters since I've been in office. So I've been sending letters. I expected $30,000. So, all right. So now it should be about $250,000. All of a sudden we get the paperwork and there's a $180,000 shortfall in the revenue and the budget's overspent for $120,000. So we're saying, wait a minute, that's $300,000 on top of the $200,000. Now we're at $1 million. Then the $500,000, excuse me. Then the auditors come in and they realize that you overspent the circuit breaker besides. So that's another $140,000. So that's where the 637 came out. So what happened is, because your budget was not realistic, either revenue side or expenditure side, you spent more than what your budget was, which is against the law in Massachusetts. School committee has no authority to go through and overspend the budget. It's written in the law. Then when the auditors, then at that point, when we came in, before the auditors came in, one of the members of my staff and myself came in, we met with members of the committee. We met with the chair of the budget subcommittee and the superintendent. And I said, besides 17, let's look at 18. And one of the things I brought up is, everybody remember that article last September in the paper about $300,000 in revenue, transportation reimbursement that was too high? So now we know there was another $300,000. And I said, well, how did you go through? Show me where you reduced your expenses by $300,000. If you know you're going to get $300,000 less, you should go through and see, you need to go through and find $300,000 less in expenses. You need to spend less. They didn't. Besides the $300,000 in revenue you didn't get, they overspent the budget again. So that's where the $1.2 million, roughly, that's where we are now, that we know of. And we want to see what the end of the fiscal year 18 numbers are. Now, we knew in 18, Jay Sullivan and I speak frequently. We've been good friends for years, and now we're, I think, better friends now.
It's good for you folks, it really is.
So we speak frequently. And my thing was, okay, we know what 18 looked like, or we have, but right up from the get-go, we had a discussion with Jay's boss, my boss. We all had a phone conference. We knew, we expected there was going to be, that 19 did not make sense with $10,000 more expenses than the prior year. We knew that didn't make any sense. It was pulling teeth to get that budget. I had asked numerous times for that budget, and as soon as I saw it, the health insurance is what I went through. And what I call it, the health insurance budget, it was a magic pen. You don't like the number, you need to get a balanced budget, well, we're not going to spend that. Even though you were going to spend it, we'll just make that budget balance. So that's what happened. So we expected fiscal year 19. We knew that. However, I hope you realize that once 19's over, you're not going to deficit spend again. It's not allowed. And if you increase, the way the legislation works is it states on the legislation that you're allowed to borrow up to a certain amount with the Director of Accounts approval.
No, with this legislation, it's commission.
Commission is right, under consultation.
Consultation with the Director of Accounts.
So, we're going to make you toe the line. And again, the school committee has no authority to overspend the budget. For fiscal 19, yes, we know there's going to be a problem. We do know you have a problem. But till that deficit legislation goes through, you have no funding source for that additional amount. We gave the advance so there would be no cash flow problem, and that you could go through, pay your bills, pay your teacher's summer pay. Teacher's summer pay is actually money that you owe teachers for last year. They defer their payroll, their pays to the summer. So if the school district closed today on June 30th, you still owe over $1 million, almost $1 million in teacher's summer pay. So, I hope that clarified.
It did, and thank you so much. I think we all needed to realize what we're up against, and thank you for letting us realize that. Any more questions from committee members?
I just think our biggest issue is making sure of what needs to happen in terms of the 19 budget. You've got a budget of 14,077. Whether this committee can live with that is a whole nother issue, but, you know, that's what these people voted. That's what you have available to you right now. So you need to justify, if that number's gonna change after legislation passes, you also gotta convince your member towns of why it has to change and why it has to go up.
Could you expand on that? Because where I sit, the towns did not approve our budget. They approved our assessment.
They approved the budget, they approved your assessment so that you could spend up to 14,077,538.
No, they approved the 8 million that we asked them for.
And then combined with your state aid, that gives you what, 14 million?
It was not their action to approve our budget. They approved
I
our
understand
assessment.
I understand, it's,
You have no other revenue source. You have
Yeah,
no other revenue
yeah,
source.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
It's
again,
semantics at this
I'm
point.
from the
Yeah, it's
camp that would
semantics.
like to pair this budget to be balanced as opposed to relying on.
That's fine, you just need to convince,
very small
you
camp,
just need to
though.
convince the rest of your committee that's what needs to happen.
I would support it if we can close a school, then it's doable. That we can save 300,000 by closing the school, then we can close that $100,000 gap.
We will absolutely need to get into that 300,000 more seriously, but I do believe we will save money. Another thought that occurs to me is with the removal of that clause, we could begin to do some load balancing. That is to say, if we're in danger of having to create a second section at Northfield Elementary, and we could move a couple kids to Warwick to alleviate the need to add a second classroom and staff. And I guess that was possible.
You have to realize whatever you do, you got transportation costs. That's your offset. Whatever you think you're gonna save, remember, you have to put your transportation cost in.
Well, Leiden's budget is 452,000, so the estimate, some of the teaching staff, the support staff, additional transportation. The budget for next year is built around preschool and 6th graders being transported to Bernardston already. If you're gonna run a bus with 2 kids, you can run a bus with 23.
Pretty good point.
Again, we know this is not gonna be an easy process. And we understand that, but, obviously those decisions are gonna have to be made by this committee. We'll try to be as helpful as we can, but again, it's,
I would dearly love some guidance on, because one of the ways we've made mistakes in budgeting is, the magic pen. And are we playing magic pen thinking we're gonna have a half-time superintendent and a half-time business manager?
I understand that. And you had a full-time superintendent, no business manager, and we are where we are. I don't,
Yeah, well, let's not set ourselves up to fail again here.
well, again, our issue is, we want to make sure that there's infrastructure in place in this district. You know, it costs money, sometimes it costs money to manage things. And I'm sure the townspeople who support you will support that as well and understand that that's a kind of common sense argument. That in some cases you need to spend money on things like that to make sure that you're managing properly. And to be able to advise the superintendent and the school committee in those kinds of issues. But I also think from hearing the conversations tonight that the school committee could use a little training and understanding in things like health insurance and some other types of things. And budgeting to some degree. So, you know, I don't know if you've reached out to Glenn Kuchar from MASC, but, you know, I think they're very good at being helpful to committees as well. But again, we don't have, you know, I don't have a hat that has all the answers in it, you know. We're gonna have to work through these issues as best we can.
So,
I know you won't give me an answer on this, but I'll ask it anyway. So, just your opinion, the negotiation subcommittee is working on the new contracts for these new superintendent and the new director of finance, which were originally clocked in at half-time. There is one outlook on this is it's better to have someone there for more time with a little additional money, some additional money, more hours, a bit more money. There's another way of looking at it is we better not raise any salary above what was on the original FY19 budget. But considering the state that we're in, do you feel it's better to spend, let's say, total $45,000 more and get somebody for more time? Would that be advisable, or do you think not?
I'm going to say I agree with you, and then I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay. Darn it. I tried. Okay.
It was worth a try.
It was worth a try.
Is there any other questions people have? I know we're going to have a million in a bit, but gloom and doom. So what we're wanting is direction. What do you have for direction? Slash and burn? Or do we go through with what our administrative team has done and they've come up with what we need to make this district work for the next year and then ask the towns for more money? I think that's the only alternative, is it not?
Well, I honestly think, I think transparency is critical at this point in time in terms of all the local taxpayers, boards of selectmen, FinComs, what have you. I think you need to be able to tell them the difference between what was approved and what staff feel is necessary at a bare bones to run the district. And you need to be able to sell that to your community. And I think that's the role of this committee, and you should make sure that you understand the budget too. Both the one that was passed and the one that the staff came up with. You need to be fairly well versed in that budget in terms of what's necessary, and to be able to defend it, I would say.
Okay, I think that's the direction we needed, is to know what is suggested, because some of us feel what we have now is bare bones, and if we cut any more, it's really decimating our schools. And our job, I guess, is going to be at trying to get everybody behind us to make those votes at a town meeting or a vote or whatever it happens to be. We have cut and cut and cut, and our admin team has been amazing at telling us what we can't cut anymore. I mean, there's some things that our district holds sacred, and those are sports and music and the arts. And whether that's right for some communities and not for others, I don't know. But for us, it seems to be out here in the sticks where we really don't have an awful lot of exposure to music and arts. It's important for our kids to have that exposure, to be able to sing in a choir or play a band music instrument or play on a football team, win a basketball game. And I think we're all sort of stuck, not really knowing where to go next.
But I also think that, you know, letting your members know that you're looking at all options. You're considering all options.
Yeah.
Now, again, you're not going to be forced into this, but again, there's nothing that says that you can't reflect and look upon it. I'm not sure what the staff looked at. Staff probably didn't think about anything about your suggestion.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did?
They did.
Yeah?
Yeah. Send
cut.
this down, and they can look at what were those. That was some of the cuts.
Can I just ask Mary Jane one quick question while that's on its way?
And these are other ones there.
The estimate for school choice sending and charter sending went up 22,000 between the governor's budget and the Senate budget. Is that based on real, should we expect the higher number? Mary Jane had suggested we build the budget on the governor's, then,
As a rule, that's what all regional school districts do, because that's the most solid number that they have back in January. But as I said a few minutes ago, House and Senate are not simpatico in terms of the budget. I don't know if the education piece, the Chapter 70 piece is part of that, because I know there's some charter school issues going on or whatever. So I don't know what's going to happen in terms
pick the
of...
higher numbers, I'll have everyone, the lower number, I mean, to,
Well, I think for planning purposes, if you plan the lower number, you'd be safe.
Does anyone know how many teachers, staff we cut last year? I don't have that figure on the top of my head.
this
You
is how
do?
many we cut, between June and January. 2
Okay.
pages of them.
All
I
right,
can
what are you
share.
guesstimating, 25, 30?
Oh, more
Are you
than
talking
that.
professional and parents?
Teachers or parents?
I'm just talking cutting because,
This is not this current, this is not this June, this was
okay.
during
Do you
the-
happen to know, Gail?
No.
Okay, does anybody else sitting out there have any idea?
Last time, what was reduced from this budget, and there were 10 people reduced from this.
From this budget, this current budget. And last year there were more. Kathy, do you happen to know how many there was?
The number 10 sticks in my head for Pioneer.
Okay,
I cannot begin to say what happened at elementary level.
all right. So we have been cutting staff. I guess that's what I wanted you to realize. We have been cutting staff all along. Or I shouldn't say all along, but for the last 2 years.
But your enrollment your tuition
Have
in
also
from
gone down.
Vernon has decreased
Exactly,
substantially also.
exactly, yep, yep.
We cut our shared teachers' budget for, music and the arts in half. And for fiscal 19, to keep just a bare minimum without completely decimating it.
Well, so, yes. Between the 14,077,538 and then the revised figures that we all have on this 619 budget, most of that is from the health and life insurance. Am I correct about that? Because it was 1,876,800, but the actual, it was revised to 2,606,031. The budgets for the individual schools actually all went down. The principals
Yeah,
cut
that's 800,000
as much as they could. So I just want to not have the impression that that didn't happen. Because the school administrators cut things as much as they possibly could cut. It's in the district administration where the money is, well, where the deficit came, right, David?
Well, then we've got our 60 other funds besides the general fund. So in today's email was a expenditure summary report for paying the retirement board out of school choice, not in our general fund, not tracked. And so when we slide
Yeah.
expense over to one of those silos, that's how we end up with the special needs transportation hit for twice what it was good for, et cetera. We've really got to get our handle on all of our activities.
No, I understand that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a black hole. If it's tracked properly,
tracked,
if it's tracked properly, then you know what you've spent from all funds. And that's, that's the enterprise that you're responsible for running. You take a look at all funds and what all those expenditures are, that's basically the bottom line in terms of what the district spends on an annual basis.
And I think with the addition of having a financial advisor, operations manager, whatever we, I think by adding a financial manager to our to our admin team, we will have somebody that can keep a handle on things that just weren't handled very well in the past. So that's what our hope and our prayer is, I guess. Now, we have voted the deficit spending last week of 450. How do we go about amending that, adding to it?
Well, at this point, it's a meaningless vote because you don't have the source of money to spend it.
Okay, all right, so that's a
So all
moot
you have
point.
is this 14,077 budget that was passed,
Okay,
right?
all right,
I mean,
yeah,
Right.
so it's a moot point at this point. Okay.
In the event the legislation passes and you do want to revise the budget, that's when I would bring it up again.
Okay, that's what I just did not quite know how to handle it. So we need to vote on the 2 million, do we, for deficit spending?
No.
We don't have to vote for anything?
No.
Okay, all right, legislation will take care of it.
Legislation will allow
Okay.
you to pay off those
That's-
credit cards, if you will.
Okay, good.
So,
We always spend too much.
Oh,
Yes, Martha?
so can I follow up that? I still don't quite understand. So the legislation says may borrow up to 2 million.
Yep.
Okay, so does, obviously the legislation, in the legislation there is not a definite amount. So you're saying
Up to 2 million.
up to 2 million.
Yeah.
So we, as a school committee, are the ones that set the amount, or how does that happen?
No, I mean, there's a set amount right now as a result of the deficit spending. And, that's gonna eat up a chunk of that.
Right, the 1 million
Yeah.
from 17 and from 18.
Well, again,
I mean,
we don't know about 18 yet, so I think
okay,
we're a
we
little
don't know.
premature.
That's 16 or 17.
Could be, it could be $1.5 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million in 18, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So
So that will be to cover whatever needs to be
yes,
covered.
yeah,
It's not something we're voting on.
no.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The way I
Didn't
assume
know
that
we
this would run is that there would be an initial borrowing to pay off the deficits, whatever deficits had occurred. And then, if there's a supplemental budget request that the committee wants,
For 19.
that for 19, that they'd want to basically say that, to balance the FY19 budget,
Oh, okay, that would be
then they
a
would do it
separate
after that,
action.
yeah, it'd be a separate action.
Oh,
after
I
that.
didn't realize that.
Yeah,
That's a separate action.
So
The-
this is
And the
sort of
commission
like
would
the-
have to approve that.
The legislature's approving our line of credit, and our,
The
our
commissioner,
first,
yeah,
our,
yeah.
our first line of review is Mary Jane, and she can't say yes, but if she says no, it isn't going any further. And then ultimately, and our amount could be reduced as it goes
Oh.
up the chain. And
So what-
So the legislative enactment would create the capacity, but it still needs sign off to actually
Okay.
address it.
The reason we did up to was we didn't want to put a fixed amount in there and then find out that there was a problem in fiscal year 19 and you had to go back through this whole circle all over again. So we had a discussion and we said, let's do it once. Let's use the word up to. We used that in the City of Lynn's legislation recently. We never did it before because they had the same problem at the City of Lynn. They had a deficit, but we couldn't put our handle around the current year. We don't know what your fiscal year 19 is. We don't even know your real fiscal year 18. You know, don't forget, you're still paying bills for fiscal year 18. Bills are still coming in. You know, till all those bills are paid, then we'll have a set number. Where, you know, reasonable estimates, but that's what we have. So that's why we did what we did. If that helps, that's why the number's written that way.
Okay, Martha, do you have other questions?
Yes, how do you close the shade?
It's broken and I can't
It's
see it being
broken.
fixed
Okay.
anytime soon.
Okay.
We do have a screen back there. You have a couple of gentlemen that would like to bring it up for us.
Probably be right over it anyway.
Yes, Peggy.
I'm still beating the dead horse.
Hey,
but-
it's okay. It's not dead yet.
Somewhere I had read in all of in researching how to close a school, there's a document probably from, it's either in the, you know, the law itself or from DESE about the recommended composition of a school building use study committee. Just closing Leiden may not prove to be enough down the road. We have to look at Warwick as well, which is our next smallest elementary school, but it's a much more heated, emotional subject. So I'd like to follow the letter of the suggested, I mean, so, you know, who should be on that committee? From what I'd read, I understand that we should really appoint the committee and then step back and let them research the projected enrollments. I mean, they have to obviously get it from our central office, but anticipated enrollments, that sort of thing, transportation costs and moving to another school. Who should that committee be made up of?
Well, obviously, it should be parents, kids that are attending the school. I would say stakeholders in each of the communities that are involved. But, you know, you want to make, when you're going through a process like that, it's a tough process. You know, you want to make sure that everybody's informed, that you get the word out to people, that you hear everybody's opinions. You know, it's a critical piece to make sure that all the stakeholders understand the ramifications of what's going on.
Is this something that the overseer has a part in or not?
I think you could, I think they may have some I'm not sure they'll have expertise in closing schools, but it's certainly something you could ask them to, you know, to ask their opinion on stuff. I mean, they may not be an expert on a particular topic.
But they can ask, they have the network to go through and ask, you know, DESE and our Department of Revenue on any subject that comes up.
And obviously the Mass Association of Regional Schools that's reached out to you as well, they're available as well to assist.
Maybe that's
Does anyone in our audience have any questions to ask of these learned people? I see hands back there.
So I just talked about the school closure and looking at enrollments. The HART committee is currently working on that. And Bob Pierce over there, I know he's part of the HART committee also. We just signed an agreement. Steve Hemmett from Mars is working on that in addition to the grant that Gil Montague has. The HART committee is working on that. And my hope is that the HART committee and the school committee can work more closely. Tanya was at our last meeting last week. It was a really good conversation. We too want to help you because it's a lot of data that has to bring together. So that's my hope for the future, is that the school committee and the HART committee can work more closely.
How close are you with information that you've gathered?
We just signed the contract.
Yeah,
It's going to take, was it November?
Maybe several months before we have the data.
Yeah, so that's going to be, we've been waiting, a couple of years. I know that you.
It's known about these problems for years.
Yep.
So a few more months at this point.
Deb, I think I see your hand back there.
Hi, my name is Deborah Potee. I'm a taxpayer and a parent and from Northfield. So I want to thank you both for being here. I've been sort of encouraging the school committee for, feels like months, but probably it's only 2 months or so, to go back to the towns to ask for more funds. And I guess I just want to, this is just for you to say, yes, this is what I'm understanding. The idea now is to either go back to the towns, we're going to get this, the cash flow coming in, you're giving us 6 months, and in that 6 months, the school committee can go back to the towns, explain very clearly if we don't get whatever the money is that we're asking for, say $400,000 divided up by the 4 towns, then, and if they don't promote the idea that this will end up decimating all the arts programs, all the sports programs, et cetera, then the next, and if the towns say yes, that's one thing, right? They say no, and then we go into more deficit spending of another maybe $500,000, and that would be $1.5 million maybe that the towns will have to pay back. Is that, am I getting it right? You guys said that it would, somebody said, one of you said it would be $200,000 a year plus interest that the towns would.
If you took, if I
took
could.
out-
if
If we
you
took out a $2 million loan,
Right.
right.
There's 2 pieces, and I think people need to realize. The cash advance of the state aid for the 6 months means you're getting 6 months up front in July, and then what they'll do is they'll take the rest of the amount, the total amount of state aid minus the advance, and they'll give you the rest of the 6 months over the last 6 months, okay? So what you've done is all you've gotten is in July 1st, you got all the payments through December, okay? In the meantime, as the deficit borrowing goes through, you'll get some money from the deficit borrowing. So that will go through, and say it's $1 million, or say it's $1.5 million. That $1.5 million that comes in pays off, goes through, and it gives you, now you have a loan, but that $1.5 million's already in your budget, because that 6 months of state aid's in your budget. So what it is all it's doing is replacing.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
If the towns go through, the problem you have with the towns, to be honest with you have 4 towns. You'd have to get 3 out of the 4.
Yep.
You have some towns that are close to their tax levy, if not at their tax levy, and they might have to have overrides.
Right. I get that. I understand that piece of it.
You get that, but that's very difficult.
Yeah, I know.
That's very, very difficult. It's not easy to go through. It's hard enough to get an override when there is a brand new school being built, or or a brand new facility. Overrides take time. They take a lot of effort and everything. I think it also, at this point, the $400,000, the deficit financing is to go through and help cure basically the deficit for up through 19, so the district can get on the right path for 20. The problem you're going to have is not the $400,000. To be honest with you, I don't think it's the $400,000 this year for 19. But how in the world are you guys going to be able to go through with that budget and survive in fiscal year 20, without having deficit financing? Because the well's dried up. We're not going to give any more.
Right.
So now you're talking about, and you don't know what the deficit is. You know what you have a deficit in 18.
We don't know the extent of that.
We don't know the extent of that, and in 19, these are guesstimates right now.
Right.
What happens if you get 3 special ed kids coming in district, or you have a special ed kid that has to go out of district because they can't be serviced in your community? That's volatile.
Right.
So what you need to go through is, I think, for overrides and everything, to go through, and this is my personal opinion, this is not speaking as Division of Local Services. My personal opinion is people are not going to support something unless they know exactly what it is.
Right. So the idea is having the school committee and concerned citizens promoting the idea that if we don't do this, we don't get this override, we'll either have to borrow more money or we'll have to cut these programs, and this is what it looks like to have these programs cut.
For 19?
Yes.
We don't know what 19 is. I mean, they're still working on budget. We don't even know what state aid is, as Jay said. We still don't know.
Well,
to the point, we have a...
Yeah, we've got an inkling, but it's not etched in stone at this point.
Right, I guess, but as a taxpayer and as someone who's sitting here listening to this, I have lots of different thoughts. Is it better for the towns to have an opportunity to come up with more funds as opposed to paying potentially, the deficit that the schools will be having annually if we have, if you're saying that's what's going to happen, that's something we're going to have to pay back over 10 years.
Let me tell you about the interest rate in
Yes.
Massachusetts. I'm seeing, because what it does is the deficit loan is taken out as a 1-year loan, and then you pay your portion, and then another loan comes out. So it does over 10 years, it reduces, but you're talking anywhere from 2.5% to 3% interest. You're not talking 25% interest, all right? It's non-exorbitant, it's not loan sharking.
Much better than first.
Definitely. Definitely.
I guess I struggle with the idea that the towns don't get an opportunity to make a decision about a budget that was under budgeted in the beginning. I mean, it was level funded for the last couple of years, is my understanding, and I just think that the towns deserve an opportunity to decide whether or not that they support the schools.
You do at the ballot, or you do at town meeting. If you don't agree with what the assessment is, there's your chance to go through.
I understand the decision to make whether to pay for it now or pay for it through a bond. I get
that's sort of where I'm going, and I guess for the school committee, I think that there are mixed emotions about closing schools. I would say, as just speaking for myself, the idea of closing these schools, yes, is upsetting, but I don't see any other way than cutting Pearl Roads and then moving on cutting Warwick. And I'll be frank with you. Can you imagine if we just close all the elementary schools and make Pioneer this building pre-K through 12th grade? How incredible the school could be if you didn't have these little elementary schools? I'm just saying, it could be an idea for the future. It would be very different from every other high school, every other school system. And if that's the way things are going, then we need to be open to different ideas rather than making the school district be as skeletal as it is. I just think maybe that's something that we need to think about. People need to be thinking far in the future what the school district's going to look like and how sustainable it is to have these little community elementary schools when money could all be spent collectively. Just an idea.
Thank you, Deb.
Yep.
Jeannie, you had your hand up?
No, I just wanted to ask if Deb had researched what the tax rates currently are in the 4 towns. There's a huge,
are you
looked,
asking me, or are you?
I'm asking you if that's something that you, did you research?
I researched Northfield because I'm a Northfielder, and
there's a huge discrepancy in what the current tax rates are.
You know what, Deb, I want to be respectful. I am really just working from my town, and that's really the only place where I can go. I know that my town, and having spoken to the chair of the finance committee and the select board, they were open to it. I know everybody is no, but as a Northfielder, that's what I'm representing, and I want to be very clear about that. I'm very, I feel when the school committee goes and speaks to the good folks who come here, my select board members don't come here very often, and I think it's great that you guys do, but Northfield is not really always represented here, and we're 50% of the school budget, so I'm just saying.
You and I are here. Are there any other citizen concerns? Okay, as it says at the bottom, we're sort of taking this out of place, but we see people here, so we need to ask. If you can stay to 3-minute limit, otherwise we're going to be here until supper time.
No problem.
A total of 20 minutes, and we've already been probably 10 minutes.
Okay, yes, go for it.
Mike Townsley, town of Bernardston. No stranger to these meetings. I've been coming for over 1.5 years, faithfully almost, more than some of the school committee members. I brought up moving 6th grade to Pioneer last year and this year. It was put on the agenda, and this school committee voted to do nothing to move that forward. that's what was voted on, to do nothing. I also looked into, as far as Pearl Road's numbers, to get this discussion because of the numbers of the students up there, and nothing was done about that. We need to look ahead about being sustainable, and in order for that to happen, we should have been a long time ago looking at having the parents come in and talking with them and getting plans together. Instead of waiting and doing nothing, we should have been looking ahead a long time ago. And it's not the first time that this stuff has been brought up, but it's always been tabled. And now push has come to shove, and now we need to make decisions. The administrative team has come up with decisions that, or plans that you can make the decisions on. They're tough choices, and I think eventually you're going to have to decide on some of those plans. Unfortunately, I don't want to see schools closed. My kids went to Leiden's elementary school, they've gone to Bernardston, and they've gone through this school system here at Pioneer. Great school system. All the elementary schools have been great. But under, like the Leiden rep said, having the kid, doesn't matter which roof the kids are educated under, we want to make sure the kids get the education. That is the goal. And that's all I've got to
3
say.
minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie, you had a
Mike, I
response.
would just like to address the 6th grade coming here. I voted to drop it for now because there was not one 6th grade parent that wrote us emails or came to us about doing just that, sending the 6th graders here. That would have been my impetus to pursue the 6th grade at Pioneer as opposed to the individual elementary schools.
I understand that, but as a school committee, I think you need to take the lead and put the thought out there and then invite the parents in. And that's, I think, what's lacking. We need to have the ideas come from the school committee so the community can come in and have discussion over it.
Thanks, Mike.
Can I just respond to that?
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's less about the parents than what the educators are saying for the kids that have been through this. And everything that I read was they're actually going back and they're finding that 6th graders do better educationally back in the elementary school. And I did quite a bit of research, so I don't like it said that we just didn't consider it.
Can somebody remind me what the projected cost savings for merging 6th grade?
180. However, that was before, I think that would have to be re-examined, given that more staff was cut at Northfield than anticipated, so we have one less 6th grade for next year to be able to cut or restructure. So it would have to be looked at again.
Yes.
I have a procedural question, I guess. The motion was made at a previous meeting to ask the towns to, send them a supplemental budget and ask them to each vote on it. Because that motion's been made and was voted down, does it have to be a person that voted against it that would reintroduce that?
Procedurally, David, do you have?
Well, I think Mr. Roberts says that, but we don't really follow Robert's rules.
Well, we're supposed to
follow them as carefully.
There needs to be either new information or somebody who voted on the prevalence side.
Really is.
That's Robert's rules.
That would be.
I was such a person when you know, going home after last week's meeting where I voted against the essentially 50-50 thing and stood alone voting against the 100%. I would certainly, but in my mind, in making that motion, I would be looking at us to cut half and ask the towns for half.
I was thinking 200,000
So
total.
I move we reconsider the people know what I'm talking about if I say the 50-50 motion?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was with the prevailing side that voted no.
And does your second have to be by someone who?
I have no idea.
I believe it's only from the same meeting, bringing it back up.
Oh,
again.
okay.
Yeah.
If it's a new meeting,
I was gonna ask
anybody
Jane.
can bring it back.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll second that. But did you put an amount in your?
I would say we went with 450, so 225 to ask the towns for supplemental appropriations, 225 that we either reluctantly seek borrowing but seek cuts in our budget. I don't think I won't speak to it.
Well,
Martha?
you say reluctantly
It doesn't
seek
matter.
cuts. Is it cuts or is it deficit? That's the difference. In your motion, I don't understand it.
What he
I
is,
will be moving for cuts, but the majority may say we want to.
But that would have to,
we don't
that would have to be a
decide.
different motion.
Let me try again. I move we request $225,000 in supplemental appropriation of the towns.
I second that.
okay. Now we have discussion. Jane, you started to speak.
Yes, you don't have a budget. How can you ask for more money until you adjust your budget?
They have a
Why
budget.
ask for more money
They have a
from
budget,
anybody?
14,077,538.
That's our budget.
That's the budget. They
We
have a
want to
budget.
increase
Right,
it.
but they want to ask for more money from the town?
Well, again,
They
there's
need
a
to
process by
adjust the budget
7116 and a half to go through to supplement that budget. There's a process that you need to go by in terms of,
What is it?
and you need to have well, again, you need, the committee needs to vote it
Mm-hmm.
and then send it back to the towns.
Right.
And then the towns have, because towns have 45 days to have a town meeting.
Right.
Now, because it's gonna increase their assessments, they're gonna need to vote. And if they don't have a town meeting, that's a no vote. So they could basically ignore it, and you're stuck with you.
I thought if they didn't have a meeting, it was a
14,077.
yes
If they don't
vote.
vote, isn't that a yes vote?
Yeah.
No. It's only a yes vote if the assessments are not going to change. But he's talking about changing the assessments by increasing the budget by 250,000, which means all the assessments would change, which requires an affirmative vote by each of the member towns.
At town meeting.
That's correct.
By each?
Well, it would have to be 3 out of 4
3 out of
towns.
4.
Four for each town, that, or town to pass it, majority vote.
Just a majority, well, again, yeah, just a majority vote at town meeting, but 3 out of the 4 towns, because you have to have 2/3 vote of the towns, and in a 4-town region, that would be 3 out of 4.
But then in the town meeting, if that vote has to be subject to a 2.5 override, then how does that work? Because Bernardston, we have about $4,000 that we can supplement the school budget with before we have a 2.5
Two-thirds vote on stabilization.
if we want to wipe out our stabilization to the committee that we don't trust because they can't give us a balanced budget. I'm sorry. folks.
Do not trust, don't blame it on the
And this
committee,
amount of money
please.
is $33 per thousand on our tax.
David?
Jane's comments caused me to remember something I think I read in the legislation, and it was just referenced. I believe there's a potential for stabilization fund to be used to pay the borrowing.
No, not to
No.
use to repay the bond. When
A town stabilization.
When a district has to borrow, what always gets put in the legislation is that they have to create and maintain a stabilization fund. And there's an amount of money that every year that you have to put in that stabilization fund so we don't run into this situation again.
Okay.
So the issue is, we make you create a rainy day fund specifically in case it rains.
Do you make us put anything in it?
Yeah, absolutely.
How
There's
much?
there's a requirement in the
It's not
legislation.
30%.
It's
It's a different
0.25% the first year.
Yeah.
0.5% the second. It goes up in
goes-
increments.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in that document.
It's on page 3 of the document,
So,
right up at the
totally
top.
unrelated to this discussion, I
that's the
apologize, but I
yes.
learned something.
And that is the regional school districts fund, not the
Right,
towns.
It's
right.
not the town.
Yes.
So if we're asking the towns to have a special town meeting, can we ask them to vote on closing the school at the same time?
Does make sense.
Is there a time, if there is a time commitment of 25 days before, 45? Before a town meeting, is there a time that's better to have a town meeting than another? I'm just asking the town officials that are sitting out there.
Well, Jeff already said it's a nasty time to have a meeting,
Have a
and,
good time in the
given that Bernardston and Northfield will both require overrides, is my understanding, and may I speak as town coordinator for a
You
second?
may.
I contacted I am town coordinator in Warwick, and I contacted our DOR rep to have him check my calculation of our town's excess capacity to tax. That is, how much money could town meeting vote to spend at town meeting and not need an override. And in Warwick's case, it's about $175,000, which is a couple dollars on the tax rate, which is easily takes care of whatever Warwick's share would be. But my advisor said, not so fast. You're really not that comfortable, because you're using all your free cash every year. And we all know what happens. Eventually the budgets get tighter and tighter and tighter, and that excess funds goes away, and we're painted into a corner. So Warwick, I don't know Leiden's situation. I'm familiar somewhat with Bernardston and Northfield. And Bernardston and Northfield's picture politically doesn't look good, and financially doesn't look good to bring more money to this.
So the answer to my question, I think I heard, would be better to wait till fall? Yes, no, when does the tax rate have to be set? Okay.
Well, if you want to make the April 1 deadline. Yeah.
Right. Okay, I guess I was just wondering about the timing of such action, whether it should be taken now or taken in the fall, the end of the summer. Jane?
I think you should work on your budget and get the number that you need, and then decide where to go from there. Put the horse in front of the cart for once, yeah.
I think we could do everything at our annual town meeting next spring. If you're gonna be allowed to deficit spend, the state's gonna give you the money to go forward. And
I don't think we are going to be allowed to deficit spend.
No, well, if the legislation passes and you have the ability, you could then increase your budget using proceeds that you could borrow. I agree with what the young man is saying, and say, so again, we all knew that this could be a possibility. I think everybody who's sitting in this room tonight understands that at that point, you could revisit that $450,000 vote you took last week and say, okay, we're now going to increase our budget. You could send it out to the towns and say, your assessments are not going to go up as a result of this.
Not this year.
No, that's correct. That's correct. They will not go up.
For the next 10 years it will.
That's correct. That's correct. But you can also have a town meeting and vote it down. And if 2 towns do that, then they can't spend the money.
That's right.
So that's democracy at work. So again, in the event that they do nothing after 45 days, in that case, then it's considered an affirmative vote. Again, it's because their assessments will not go up in the current fiscal year. Again, it's credit card payment. I hear what you're saying, sir. But again, that option is available to you. We also have had other towns talk about having town meetings in the summer, and they say it's not to their advantage, because a lot of people are on vacation and away, and
That was my
people that are,
question, as I wondered.
yeah.
But we do have a motion and a second on the floor. We've just had discussion, so we do need to vote. It was
Peg,
to,
you want to continue with this, given what we've heard?
I wouldn't support it if we're not gonna have the town meeting as soon as possible to know whether this is real money or not. Why would we spend only to find out that it's gonna be added to, this all has to be paid back. I mean, it's.
Well, I'm for finding a way to balance our budget, and going to the going to the towns is one way to affect that. If we don't go that route, I will continue to look for cuts. One of the things I worry about in terms of kicking the can down the road here is the question, are we viable, period? And there are some things we might choose to do now that which will contribute to our lack of viability. And that is ginning up more debt, and it's possible that we just don't deserve to exist any more than Kaiser Motors, Nash, and Packard. There's a question whether you can be sustained on a certain level. We came through all kinds of automotive mergers and saw the failure of the big three because they weren't nimble enough. So too big wasn't too good. But it's possible that with 664 kids, we can't do it.
Mary Jane?
You have to remember, one thing I want you to remember, you have an overseer coming in here with the expertise to help you.
Another
all right?
bill.
What was that, Peggy?
What's another bill we have to pay?
But you have an overseer coming in, and I'm going to be very blunt. You didn't get this point without the school committee helping to go through and have this deficit. You are not a fiscal responsible school committee.
Well,
this school committee has not gone through and done its duties because you don't go through and approve and maintain your budget. It is against the law to overspend your budget. You overspent your budget in 17. You overspent your budget in 18. We know your 19 budget doesn't make sense. You've gone through, but one thing that you have to do is you don't want to go through and cut your 19 to the point that now 20 is going to be worse. You can't go through and deficit spend in 2020. If I had a chance to go through and do an override, I wouldn't do it in 19. Because at least in 20, you would have an overseer go through and said, if you don't get the override, this is what's going to happen. They're going to go through and say, these are the choices. These are things that would have to happen. You either cut schools or you go through and whatever. You know, all the things that they looking at different health insurance, they're going to have the expertise. Your school committee does not. So I would rely on the experts.
I'm feeling very responsible in this deficit, but I also feel that we trusted somebody and we got absolutely nothing, and we're being blamed for it. And a lot of the staff in this district trusted too, and they're being blamed for it, and they're having to cut this budget to bare bones. And it isn't all our fault. I will take responsibility for what we have not done, which was we should not have believed something or someone.
Are there any others? Okay. Any other questions from anybody? All right. So are you going forward with that motion or not? I'm waiting for an answer.
I would just as soon withdraw it at this point, if it's agreeable to the second.
The towns are saying they won't have a special town meeting.
Well,
all right.
I think the argument that we're not ready to make the case. Let's get ready.
All right.
It's not going to go through.
Is there any reason you need us for anything?
That's what I was just going to say. If there is no other.
It's still light out. I'm happy. I might be able to get
You
home
might be able
before the
to drive
street lights
home?
come on.
Cool, that would be nice.
Oh, that's good, because we don't have street lights.
We could be,
We had to cut our streetlights.
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, we don't have straight light, yes,
I do have one question for them.
okay.
The language in the proposed
Legislation.
legislation says series of loans, or I may not get the word series, but it indicates more than one loan. Would that then be rolled into one loan when you get to the?
I think eventually, yeah. Well, I think, yeah, because we didn't know what the 19 picture is at this point. We know what the deficit is, so that's the amount that will be borrowed initially. That's why it says up to a certain amount. Until we can recognize what the exact fiscal picture is, you know, we had to have some flexibility there because we didn't know at this point.
So
But
it's
eventually it would be one loan, yes.
It's like a building loan. I'm gonna
Yes.
build a
Yes.
house.
Construction loan, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very
All
welcome.
I
But the
can,
max would be 10 years.
I cannot thank you guys
Thank you so
enough.
much.
Somehow I have a feeling we're gonna be having a lot of conversation.
I think you're right.
Just getting a.
Just,
For a long
but
time.
it is, I just so appreciate your coming out,
No worries.
out
Thank you for
west.
trying to
It's,
help us.
Yeah.
they've shed
Well,
a
again,
lot of light, and I think we
and
need
I'm, you
that.
know, we're a phone call away. Let us know, you know.
All right, I'll put you on speed dial.
There you go. All right, thank you very
Thanks an
much.
awful lot.
Okay.
Good luck.
We're gonna need it.
All right, so,
The next is discussion on changes since last meeting.
Has it been
They
officially withdrawn?
They withdrew
No, they
those, they
withdrawn.
withdrew those motions. Discussion of changes since last budget meeting.
What does
Where
that
do we
mean?
start?
I don't know what that means.
We need to go through these two, the one that Tanya presented and the one that
Right.
our administrators gave.
The one from.
I don't think we're
The
able to
people-
do that yet.
In light of
Oh,
what's been shared, it makes sense
yeah.
To come back with a little more structure.
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Before the end of the fiscal year?
Huh?
We don't
Can
have
we
the.
look at a few of the items? I mean,
Yeah.
Peggy, you've been doing your homework. Why don't you lead this discussion?
there's some salaries to be negotiated that I would say we skip over for now, but there are other. Oh, I'm sorry.
Peggy, can you just tell me which two budgets are you comparing?
This one is 619 on 619. 19 and 12. And administration on 612.
But we changed the date by, in pen on the one from Director of Finance.
So the 612 budget that was put together by the administrators. team.
Administrators, yeah.
And this one is put together.
No, I wasn't here, but it doesn't matter, I don't have to see it, I just have to know what dates.
Okay, well, newspaper advertising, this is all, the first things are under district administration. The
Is it 619?
I'm working on two.
612 and 619.
Okay.
But, I mean, I'll give you each amount if you don't have both of them. It is, newspaper advertising, the budget from our administrators is at 5,500, which is what, 18 was and what the original one for 19 was. The one from our upcoming finance director had been reduced to 4,000. But I mean, she's not here to tell us. She has written in decreased to the fiscal 18 spending plus $350 for increased potential rates. So, I mean, is this something we should ask Gail to take back to the administrators and?
Well, the actual, it says FY18 actual in the column on the budget dated 6/19 is $3,650. We try to use School Spring as much as possible for advertising. There are some things we need to use the newspaper for. There are some legal pieces that we have to, that are required to put in the newspaper. I think 4,000 would work.
Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
We're gonna
can I
go
just
through-
ask a question? I have a budget which says 614, but it's really 619,
Yeah.
2018. And it has these 4 columns, and I thought we were comparing what's in the FY19 to the revised FY19 figures.
We're comparing this budget that Tanya presented with the one that our administrators presented the previously.
Okay, but Tanya's revised columns are over here, so I thought that
Right, and
covered
hers
it
is
all.
4, and we're agreeing on 4,000 for newspaper
Okay.
advertising.
Do you really want to go through every single one of these lines
Only the
now
ones
at
that
this
are-
meeting?
Only the ones
This
that
is
are
gonna take-
different. There's very few, actually.
Okay.
But we don't have to, if you don't want to.
I think we should, if we were here. There's not that many of them.
Okay.
Do we have the strength to do this double
Just-
time?
Pick up the pace, okay, talk
There's
faster.
a lot of comments here, so we're gonna have a lot to go
Uh,
through.
Financial overseer, which is, so,
We can't talk about that.
that's the financial
Oh, the
overseer.
oversight, yeah, okay.
We had originally, the administrators we had picked 60,000 because that's what they
That's
had
what we were
us.
told by the DESC that the overseer would cost. What I see here in the explanation is that it's reduced to reflect 9 months. Now, I didn't hear from them that we would only have 9 months.
That's why I asked the question.
And what did,
As soon as he started, and they could, it would start as soon as legislation was passed, so it
So
could
we
start
need
in
to
August.
keep the
We don't know.
60.
So I think we need to keep the 60.
She got
Well,
this,
actually, we go to 55. We could say July is burned.
Yeah.
so, and the person that Sue spoke with on the phone at
Or
the,
Abrams
Hammond.
that's the one. He
we're
actually
raising
may
that up.
be our, and he said because he didn't start in October in another location. But he could very well start sooner here, so maybe 55?
Okay.
She's on the first page.
Okay, shared health supplies, we had a discussion on that. It had been reduced in half down to 1,080. Tanya had, put it back up to 2,200 to meet the needs and to meet the fiscal 18 spending level. I don't know what,
That's the nursing
I
bit.
can say that, I know in that line, we need to get, pads for the EDs and, several things, so that,
I thought that was covered in the nursing grant, or is it not covered in the nursing grant?
No.
Okay, all right,
We need to keep.
I mean,
So
she
the
must have had a
22
reason for
stands.
doing this.
Yeah, we
All right.
should keep that.
okay,
Because I'm assuming that AEDs have, especially in the elementary schools, have both adult and pediatric
Yes.
pads in them.
You have,
Yeah.
here, you have 2 sides, yeah.
Yes.
Superintendent office telephone, the administrators had budgeted 2,700. Tanya had upped it to 39 to match the fiscal 18 spending.
Yep. Makes sense to
Yeah, do
me.
you know anything about that?
Brenda, do you have any
It is what it is.
recollection of superintendent phone? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you're the one that has
I mean, is
these
there-
numbers usually.
Is that a bump in the, did we have a lot of
Brenda's looking.
Brenda's
calls
looking, yeah.
to?
look at FY18 actual,
Right.
if you look at FY18 actual.
Right, that's what it was.
Actual right now, through this warrant that you're approving this week, spending is, $2,474.54 is actual spending.
So now it just.
Well, this says 3898. So
Yeah,
that-
this is saying under,
So I think we could go with 27th, right?
well,
Which is the
may be a
administrative
reason
ask
for
for
but
that.
we have a difference in.
I don't understand why
We have
that-
a difference, a huge, we have over $1,000 difference
Gail
in
wants
the-
to speak, please.
I think we go with the accurate number that the spending has for
Yes.
Brenda. I honestly don't know where these FY18 actual came from, but she has the documentation there, so I think it would be safe to go with 2,700.
Yeah, I would too.
The same as it is.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, the next one is employee separation costs.
Bless you.
We had that set at 35,000. I think she did, Suzanne did a workup on that with expected payouts.
Those came straight
From her.
Suzanne, so I would go with.
$40,944.
Say that figure again.
40,000.
45,000.
No. Yeah. 40.
It's in there already.
I
In
don't know
revised
where
final
that is, but this
FY19.
is right here.
If you're looking at the budget that we should be looking at, which is dated 6/19.
Well, some people have different versions, so that's the only reason I was
Yeah,
reading it
yeah,
out.
yeah. But if you look at the, if you're looking at 6/19, that's the figure that's in there.
Right. And then the last one under district administration that we're gonna look at tonight, skipping the salaries, is the tuition for school choice and charter schools. We had based that on which is why I asked Jay Sullivan, we had budgeted based on the governor's budget, which is the 744, and the Senate budget and the House proposal were both 766, 687, and he didn't really.
He only used the Senate vote. He said they were really far apart and they're gonna.
He said to use the lower one.
He said to use
budget, use the lower budget.
So in this case, it's the higher number,
That's
because
right.
it's gonna give us the
That's
lower
right.
budget.
So 766.
766, 670.
678, yeah. That's what's on this is the latest cherry sheet estimate that I printed in June. And
Are those Tanya's figures?
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about this at the
Well, actually, it was,
last
yeah.
meeting. Okay, then we jumped all the way through to
You're gonna pass live.
all the way down to Warwick is the next place that there's a difference between these two budgets. That's all I'm doing.
Okay, that's
Yep.
great.
Okay.
We're on
Warwick.
I like that.
And it's
Find it, wait a minute.
Warwick.
Very almost last.
And it's the question of the principal's salary. And Tanya had upped it back to the original one, and I think
I
we
can
had
handle
this.
this. We heard from the principal, she said she's agreeable to 50% time. It's not an issue, Tanya shouldn't have put it back.
Okay,
The number is
47,000 even,
40.
yes, instead of the 54. Then we go to shared, I think I'm gonna skip the curriculum coordinator discussion, because that's ongoing.
Nothing on Pioneer?
It's, part of it is being negotiated, right? I'll leave that one.
Yes. I cut other things to leave some of those things
I think that it's a really important position, and we need more administrative support at Pioneer. So if we're not going to support what we need in terms of administrative support, then I would bring back, say, my secretary that I cut. There's just not enough staff to do what we need to do. So if you want to add to other funds to make up another salary somewhere else, that's fine. But I would like to make the case that we really do need a half-time curriculum person at Pioneer.
And I'm not the one to lead that discussion right now. I can only do the easy ones.
So that, I'm trying to find it in the Pioneer budget.
I don't see
where it is.
Right below Warwick.
You're talking about the curriculum coordinator?
Right. So that's in the budget the administrators did together.
Yes.
So it should stay there.
It should be 40,000 and not 20,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it's not in time.
So are we making that decision now?
It should be. It was a .5 curriculum coordinator that we decided through many, many meetings was a priority to keep, and other things were chosen instead.
Okay.
No, we started at 20, I think we need to stay there.
No, we started at 80.
I mean, with the reduction, I think we need to stay there for now.
That wouldn't hire a curriculum
That's
person.
0.25.
.5. We need $40,000, which has been in the budget until last week.
Got it.
When one person changed it.
619 disappeared with the .25. Previous to that, it was .5 at 40,000.
Unfortunately, we don't have a budget.
Originally 1.0,
Yeah.
.5 for.
Nothing's
let's
in the
go through
budget.
and see what Tanya changed, or was changed at the last meeting, and then we can discuss after that. Then we'll be all on the same page.
That one I can't lead a discussion on, so we can look at the shared staff.
Shared staff.
And the question of tech hardware. Our administrators had recommended $35,000 for PVRS tech annual, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong line, tech hardware, and
It's knocked down to 6,000.
And again, we left that in there intentionally, decided as a group, and left that there purposely, and chose other things in the cutting process.
yeah, that's one of them. Well, and
Well, there's more other things in the cutting process that we have to consider, because we have $450,000 to cut. So everything's on the table.
I thought we decided not to
Until we start adding these things back
cut. We
in.
were not going to.
Right, we can't.
We pretty clearly expressed a desire to spend another $450,000.
Okay, can you continue writing us through this?
sure, I just didn't know which one. I mean, clearly we have to have some money to replace hardware, no matter what type it is. I mean, things break, and it's part of functioning. So I guess we have to go back to that. Is that the?
And again, administrators, after hours and hours of work, and you sending us back and forth, working as a team, this is what we came up with and left in the budget, was $35,000. And then all of a sudden, one person changes it, and now we're having a discussion about it.
I think it wasn't just one person, I think she changed it, but I think she heard people discussing at the school committee level that they didn't support that figure. So I think that may be why she did that. She's not here, I don't know, but I would guess that.
Well, maybe some backup on the 35 and the 16,750 would help us make that decision. So then, I can't make that. Then special needs, there's a number of items that were changed. It is,
The special needs items were the only ones that were discussed with the special education director, and she feels that these cuts can be made. Because I spoke with her after as well.
okay.
Not here.
So the ones, then we'll stick with the ones that are on the document from the 19th, which is an additional $13,500, and
We're spending.
no, it's with the reduced.
It's reduced.
It wasn't.
Where are you on now, Peggy?
Special, she's on special
Actually,
needs.
it's reduced by 18.5. The total for special needs, we're going with the items on Tanya's 619
Okay.
for a total of 1527,627.
So we're going with that, because it says per Chris, per Chris, per Chris. Okay.
Right.
Minus 18,000.
Yes.
Right.
Incorrect.
Oh, it's not, doesn't, I haven't.
So what is the bottom line on that? I don't have the right.
I don't have any way to add that up.
Jean can add all that in her head.
What do you want, the total of that column or the difference between 19 and 19 revised?
The new total for revised final fiscal 19.
I assume she added it correctly, $1,547.627, $1,000,000.
Two of those lines increase.
Subtract rate. It's more like 12,000 or 11,500.
So are you taking all the ones that say per Chris because and again, she was consulted. Two of them that I see are a little bit higher. Most of them are less. So I'm using this page.
Since she sat down with her and went through it line by line.
I'm just bringing to your attention that a few of them
No, thank
are
you.
a little higher, but they all say per Chris.
It's minus 11,500, not minus 18,500.
Now, the only other question is, I have handwritten on mine from last week, our deficit was increased by 104,000 because of the projected shortage in school choice in and out, I have written.
Yeah, I have that too.
And that's the one thing that I do know that Tanya did look at that, and she was telling me that she was looking at the figures, the most recent figures that we have for school choice in and out, because they always get adjusted at this time of the year. So the figures that she did have were based on the adjusted figures that she was looking at that are current figures.
Okay, so I don't know what she's basing it on. I mean, fiscal 19, that starts over, the amount we get starts over July 1st.
Right, but I think it's based on enrollment numbers.
Okay.
Current. So, and then she was, and so she was using
Okay.
those figures.
Have her here.
Then we have
She
to.
was pretty confident on those figures, I can tell you that much.
Which I still can't wrap my head around, so somebody will have to help me, because we're using the cherry sheet estimates that the DOR are. So, we'll have to wait for Tanya to explain.
I was just gonna say, that might be a discussion to have with Tanya.
I see Megan's
I somewhat
hand.
She could very well,
I
just don't.
understand what she did, but I don't have a solid enough understanding to be able to explain it.
I don't want to pretend I do, so.
Megan, you had your hand raised.
Well, I just want to go back to the elementary equipment hardware, which is for all 4 schools technically. And there's $500. I didn't hear that was getting readjusted, or did I miss that?
I didn't know how to lead that discussion. Clearly, it doesn't look adequate to me, but.
It is not adequate.
None of the budget is adequate,
But it,
Obviously, Chromebooks has been one of the topics, but besides that, we have been having internet issues. The plan is, according to Nick, our computer technician, and according to Tina Mahaney, that we need to shut down our system for about a day to have a diagnosis occur. It is suspected. I used firewall last time. I was corrected by, that was what Nick shared with me. Tina said that it sounds like it might be a router issue, which has 2 parts, potentially a $5,000 and a $3,000 part. That's $8,000. That doesn't mean that that has not been diagnosed, but potentially there's an $8,000 very rough estimate of a possible repair that may or may not need to happen. In addition, there's a lot of random things, like our nurse's computer is very old and isn't able to support the software that the nurses use, and according to Nick, that needs to be replaced going forward. That's a desktop that could wipe out that $500 just in that. And then we have multiple repairs that need to happen, or replacements of equipment, projectors that have broken, teacher laptops that have broken. Not huge amounts, but all of that adds up pretty quickly. So while I still am rooting for additional devices in our school to support the technology needs for students, there are other things that just need to be maintained. So I would ask that some consideration be given to increase, right, and that's just Northfield, right? To increase that somewhat, at least, to be able to address potentially essential issues, as well as just maintaining our services as is.
I hear the concerns, but I personally don't think that we're going to be able to increase much of anything tonight.
Well, I guess it's concerning that
we need to go to the line that we recommended before that one meeting last week. We all met, and that is the number that we recommended, talking to our technicians.
And there's certainly an inequity when Pioneer is keeping 13,000 and the elementaries are going to 500. So
it's just not realistic to put $500 for elementary technology in the budget. And it was, I made the statement last week as to, why they were randomly cut.
I guess the budget that I'm looking at is the one that was presented by administrators on the 12th.
And you're looking at $16,750 for elementary tech hardware?
And that's where I think we need to do the cutting.
All right, well, let's put it back in.
No, don't, let's not, I'm not sure that we should put it all in, but I think we should we should look at that figure and see how to change it. I don't think it's sustainable to do 500, but is it to do 16? Probably not. But maybe we can meet in the middle someplace. That's what we need to do at these figures that are out of whack.
And we may have to do the same with PVRSD
I think we will.
Because
so let's start doing it.
Well, we need a tech. We don't have Tina anymore.
We don't even have our technology director anymore because she had to resign. So we are needing a tech director, and I think Gail has been interviewing, and
Bob and the 2 technicians have been interviewing, and John today. He was away for the first one, and a recommendation has come to me.
Do you think the figure we have in the budget is sustainable?
I have no idea.
Okay.
The last person that was recommended, we in no way could meet his salary expectations.
Can we wait on making decisions on some of these technology numbers until we get a technology director on board and get that recommendation from?
Our problem.
It's going to take a long time for,
have to
not a long
put a
time, it will
figure.
take a while for a new person to assess all 5 buildings. And again, when we created this budget, we knew that there were things that needed to be repaired and replaced, and that's where we came up with the number and made sure that was there and perhaps cut something else.
A minimum of 10 to 12,000 would go into that line, just based on what Northfield needs to make sure that they can access the internet. Below, the repairs that we're going to.
Right.
Yeah, my understanding is that if this, what did you say, $8,000 for the new router?
It's an estimate if that's what it is.
If this repair is not made, you basically have no internet, is that the deal?
A couple of times where we've gone a better part of the day without access.
So it seems to me that, I mean, I know a tech director would be, we should wait for a tech director to buy new equipment and so forth.
Well, our technician has helped us give us some kind of, I'm going to say guesstimate estimate.
Okay, and we don't have any other line that covers repairs like that too?
No.
No, that's all in
And
that
remember,
line.
students need technology to take the MCAS.
I don't know.
So it's
I just
3
think we have to
down
put
from
that
the
back.
You have to think
Some
of
of that's
technology
just
as
done, and I can't-
pencils and paper
Right.
these days.
All right, so let's start working down through because we're jumping around and we need to have some direction. I'm not sure what that direction is, but
Well,
We
I
need to
mean, I
know
would
it.
say put 12,000 in for now, and then we're gonna have to run through this again, but it's a compromise, I don't know.
I
What
don't
did
know.
Jay Sullivan call it? Something about a magic pencil?
Yeah.
We-
That's what got us into trouble.
She must have taken it with her, so, so the PVRS Tech hardware, the 35,000 represented replacing the Chromebooks as needed, or just a total replacement?
That figure came from, the budget figure that was cut out last year when we were starting a one-to-one, rolling out a one-to-one Chromebook initiative, plus maintaining our current hardware. And our current hardware this year has gotten even more debilitated. We have machines we can't use because they're missing keys. Our faculty have no access to mobile devices. We have a lot of needs, and the more we kick it down the road, the worse it's going to get. So this is based on-
Unfortunately, we're probably gonna have to kick the
down the road,
one-on-one down the road because we don't have any choice. But we do need, an amount in there that's reasonable for replacing broken items.
Broken equipment.
Right, but I think, you know, as my colleagues have said before, it becomes an issue of access to technology for education. And we don't have enough devices in the building to meet the demands of teachers when they want to use computers with their students. So I think it's, and again, something we didn't fund last year. I would really like to see something that's not 35, maybe 20.
All right, let's
Something like that.
put 20 in.
And have
So I'm
all
putting
that.
20 in for Pioneer, just because I'm going to be, or somebody with me is going to be making these corrections. And elementary tech hardware is 12, did you say?
Let's try it. That's what I
I
penciled
mean,
in.
that would be a tide over
I can't.
to the possibility of
increase in a
grants.
budget like this. I just can't.
It's not
do
an
it.
increase.
It's not an increase because it was there.
I can't do this.
we cannot conduct business if people keep leaving.
Well, we gotta be
We've got-
realistic. We're not being realistic.
We've got to get
We
through
keep
this.
adding money and adding money.
Can we go back to,
And we need to be realistic
Megan?
about some other things.
Well, we do.
I'm okay.
Well,
But
paper
not-
and pencil. of
Megan is
today's
trying to
is
speak.
Computers.
They can't function without
I completely
this.
appreciate the situation that we're in, and
Chromebooks are not in the cards for this year, I can respect that. I equate this to putting our sublines down too low and not being able to meet that mark. And I think the reality is there are things that are out of our control, and if there isn't a chunk of money, which I will agree to not spend until we have the advice of our technology director, as long as it's not the internet issue, but you know, I'm agreeable to all of that. But if we don't have that money in, we're not going to be able to continue to maintain our facilities. So I think it's the same as falsely putting our sublines too low to balance a budget. I think we're going to be right back in the same situation because things are going to break. That is the nature of technology.
I think that's been the problem with our budget in the past, is it's been too low, it hasn't been workable, and that's what's gotten us into trouble.
And we mistakenly trusted people to give us figures that accurately
So,
represented.
Peggy, can you lead us on?
Those are the ones that, other than some yet to be negotiated salaries, that I have the highlighted difference between the two budgets, because I thought that's what we were gonna try to iron out tonight. Of course, just once I wish it was somebody else at the table that would bring up school closing. But apparently, I've got the hat on.
You're kind of left alone with that.
I'll bring it up. I don't think I could survive it.
Well, just one. I think that's where we start.
Jim, did you have your hand up?
For what?
I don't know, it's up in the air.
Oh, it's just leaving.
Okay. All right.
I support
I
Peggy.
mean, it is 8:45. Some of us have been here all afternoon too, but we have work to do. Let's get it done. Let's start to work on it.
Well,
What
are we?
What we discussed here in this section.
Sure.
I think it's in the minutes, but to convey them to Sean.
Yeah, I will tell her which lines.
No,
Yeah.
and the numbers.
Yeah, she has. She's been working.
I would like to, I know this is a really busy time for our administrators, but maybe once we get past I don't know when, we need to look at, again, I mean, I know that, I don't know how you came up with the potential 30,000 savings on closing Pro Roads. But I mean,
300,000.
yeah.
Because I think we explained this before, we have to keep we kept half of the lines to maintain the building, because that's our right, that's our responsibility in the district agreement. We can't cut the whole amount because we have to maintain minimally the building. We have to keep it running, we have to keep heat so the pipes don't freeze. And then there were a few staff members that we needed to absorb if the students go to Bernardston, in order for them to be taught. That's where that came from.
So I mean, I guess we have to kind of fine tune that. And on the same subject, if we are to look at Warwick, and we need to do it in a sort of a calculated, methodical way, a study committee has to be formed. It would have to go to town meetings, say October or November. That resolution has to go to DESI, and it has to be approved before January 1st if we go through that process in order to close Warwick. So we need to start that process as well. Now, we may look at it, we may find out that it's not going to save the kind of money we think it is. Maybe there's going to all the grades will need 2 teachers. I don't know. But I mean, the process should be done. We can't have the people from the state sitting here telling us that we're another $500,000 in the hole, and what are you going to do the following year if we don't look at the things that would impact all the kids the least? Unless everybody wants to cut sports and music and. I'll be the bad guy. I'm not running again, so.
Martha. Oh, I don't know if you were
I'm
first.
not.
Okay.
Sharon, let her go.
I'm not gonna support increasing line items if we're talking about closing schools. This is ludicrous. We were working on this budget here, and we're increasing the numbers as we go on, and we're talking about closing schools. That is not reality to me. What are we doing?
We're not increasing the
Well,
budget.
increasing the lines.
From Tanya's, one person changed these, all our administrators work together
I
on.
would just suggest that there's times when amounts are added in that it's not an indulgence, but it's actually recognizing what the real cost might be, and that we have, as well as a revenue problem, we have a problem in the past of using that magic pen and balancing our budget on paper. So the discussions you object to, I understand from what they do to our bottom line, but they really need to be had and noted and worked through.
So are schools. So it's, and it's not as though these numbers were just made up, you know? I mean, I think that one of the biggest problems here is that the person didn't check with administration first before some numbers were changed, as she should have, but she didn't. And a lot of the recommendations she's making, I think that should have gone through administration. I think that here they're solid, not all of them, but you know, I would support a lot of them. But I wouldn't support closing schools to make these you know, I just can't see how we can even think about discussing closing schools and then adding, you know, going back to the higher figures. I just don't see where that.
Martha?
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did. But it seems like, I'm just trying to get an overall picture of like where we're headed tonight and in the weeks to come. And I gather from what was said here that the main priority we need to do is get a, quote, balanced budget. And I'm not exactly, to be perfectly honest with you, sure what that means as far as how much we have to cut. So that's a question. But the second thing is, Jay, what's his last name? Jay Sullivan and Mary Jane Handy seemed to be saying that was top priority, to get our FY19 house in order, so to speak. But they also said that we will be getting someone to come in, financial overseer, probably fairly shortly. And I got the impression that they thought, I mean, I know they want us to do this on our own, but some of these things we're talking about now, we can get better guidance on, and even in the legislation, we're talking about how to close the schools and so forth, but that can be done through that legislation. I'm not saying it's a great thing, but if we get that million whatever number of dollars, I'm not even sure it has to be voted on by the towns. I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, so don't everybody, but I'm just saying, is that your understanding of it?
The other thing I heard from them, and I think I was right, is that we need to come up with a budget that's viable. That's not a budget that is going to be meeting the bottom line, but a budget that's going to meet our students' needs. And that's where I'm coming from, is I don't want to cut to the point where we can't use a computer, and if we can't use a computer, they can't take the MCAS, or
Right.
we offer some classes at Pioneer, but we don't have the teachers to teach them, so therefore there's no accelerated classes. I think that to have a child learn how to read music is probably as vital as a second language. And I think they need that. I think there's a lot of things we need to keep in this budget, and I guess that's why I keep saying, let's go back to the budget that the administrators worked on so hard and see if there's any place that we can work with them to cut some money out. But to cut down to this lower figure that we had voted I'm just not sure we can do it. $10,000, I bet our household budgets go up more than $10,000 in a year.
Well, to your point, $425,000 overspent is where we find ourselves according to the reports. So that was, well, it wasn't our budget, but that was effectively, that was our operating budget, which is a good solid $400,000 more than.
Right, so what are we
budget.
aiming for? Are we aiming tonight to start the process of cutting $425,000 out of our FY19 budget? Because I thought last week we reached a consensus that we didn't want to.
Well, we did, and then we had Mary Jane Handy say, if you're looking for an override, think in terms of 2020, not 2019. And this goes to the sustainability problem. If we bake in this extra $400,000 in the FY19 budget, we got to find it again going forward. It does not appear to be there. Yes.
I just think it's more harmful to
decimate
some of the programs.
So do we keep eating higher on the hog on the credit card because we just don't want to change our diet?
Well, do we lose all our kids because we don't have any technology or music or band or, I mean, I don't know. There's no other way to reach it.
Do we lose them anyway because we continue to violate the law and lose money, which we can't do?
Well, that's my opinion.
Overspending. A point of information that I was unaware of, we have 12 elementary kids that school choice out of Leiden. That's a third of the population, because I don't know, nobody's surveyed them, but I'm assuming they don't feel that having 2 kids in 5th grade is a good place to have your kid be in 5th grade. And we have 6 only, and that K through 6 that choice out of Warwick. But I mean, that I was surprised when I read that. I know there's homeschool kids as well, and that's their business why they do that, choose to do that. But oh, good, Lisa.
Hi.
I teach in Leiden. I believe some of those 12 are from above grade 6. I don't think they're all elementary age.
No, there's 3 from 7th through 12th, and 12 from K through 6.
12 from K to 6? Oh, I stand correct. Recently, we are now going to be a pre-K to 4 school. And our numbers in the lower grades are better. Our number in 3-4 isn't good, but we do have more kids for next year if the pre-kindergarten stays in Leiden, which I believe the plan is for that to happen. Families have been contacted, and that also allows a certain number of choice kids to come in. I absolutely see the writing on the wall, and I absolutely don't want the district to be hurt by Leiden staying. But if we are given one more year, we do have some good numbers next year. We have, I believe, since those original numbers were decided on, the 300,000, I think we have 1 teacher less now considered in that amount. I believe. This is sort of out of my purview, but and our numbers are better, and we are allowing pre-kindergarten kids into our school, but also to stay, because my understanding is that Bernardston has already the number of pre-kindergarten students that they can take. So the only other thing that I want to say is Pioneer's valedictorian this year is a Leiden student. And three student of the month students here at Pioneer were Leiden grads, 1 7th grader, 1 8th grader, and 1 11th grader. So I just don't want you thinking that Leiden hasn't done anything for years, because we have been really a great school. We've sent off excellently educated kids, and I do absolutely don't want to hurt the district, but I do want you all to know I've been so fortunate to teach in Leiden. I've had wonderful students and a wonderful career there, and we really have done a great job, even though things are as they are now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
And I know it's hard to be hanging on, and I'm sorry about that.
So, I don't know where we go from here. Anybody have any ideas? Jeff?
Just going back to what that Mary Jane said, about the 50% of the state aid is coming in. So it's almost like, you're going to be able to operate up until such and such a date, and I would suspect that the overseer and the people from the state are going to be here in time to compensate for where you're headed next, and that's to go over the budget in detail again when the state is here, and you're going to be able to keep the system running until probably well into the fall.
But if $100,000 to meet payroll.
But I guess I'm thinking, what happens if you have $50 and you spend 25 of it by October, and then you have 25 of it to the end of the year? Where do you go from there? You know, I mean.
We already decided on the deficit spending.
That just isn't the answer.
The assessments are coming in August. You got enough,
And the overseer's job, and what you're paying him or her for, is
They're gonna help us figure it out.
to help us figure it out.
So,
I think
do-
you should make some cuts that you see are obvious and that you know are not hurtful. Or not too hurtful.
I think.
You can't change the whole budget tonight.
No.
That's right.
And you can't go back to the towns for more money tomorrow morning.
No.
So let's be practical.
Zero.
If you see some line items, take some suggestions from the administrators, say, work hard on this. You keep saying that you don't have any experts. You have a whole crew of experts, but you're
and
not listening to them.
That's why I was.
These were your options. Are they great? Do any of us think they're great? No, but these are the options after hours and hours of disintegrating the line items. These were the options. They're color coded. They're not to take the whole purple page, or the intent was not to take the whole purple page or the whole orange page, but those were options in those categories.
So let's.
I mean, your main focus tonight, or whatever it is to make sure that $1 million bill, or whatever it is, gets paid at the end of the week.
Right,
That's
right,
one
right.
of the focus.
All right, I will make sure that we've contacted people. All right, so let's start with this, okay? Elizabeth, I didn't see you.
I just do want to say, when we did that, contracts had not gone out.
Uh-huh,
Now we've gone past the deadlines.
right.
For,
A lot of these things, exactly.
So there were
so none of
instructional assistant and teacher cuts. But if you choose, this is the hard part now, because that obviously is anybody's budget's majority of the money is for staff and faculty. So many of these options are going to be taken off the table because the contract deadlines have come and gone.
Okay,
So
so
perhaps the overseer might be the person to advise us. I
So
don't-
the staff reduction page is not anything we should look at, correct?
No, we can't.
We've already done
Some of it,
Yeah.
some of it has
That's
been
what I mean.
done,
Yeah.
because
Understand what we're talking about.
when these
He might have showed up to the end
papers were brought to the committee, no decision was made.
Okay.
And you sent us back to the table as a
Right.
group, and we did some of these and cut again.
Okay.
Actually, I think we've cut at least twice.
I think you have to.
Since this.
Right.
Because you hadn't made decisions.
All right. So the late bus has been eliminated,
That is correct.
Okay. Have we eliminated budget support for after-school clubs?
No.
But that would be an area that you could still change because there's no contract involved in that.
Reduce budget support for after-school clubs by half, that's not quite so harmful.
Right.
How much are we're talking 14,000 for half, and 28 for whole. Reduce number of sports or number of teams per sport for athletic programs at Pioneer in half. Is that anything anybody wants to think about?
We need to.
Just laying it out there. Eliminate elementary field trip support from budget for non-academic and out-of-district trips, 8,000.
We already did that.
Already, okay. So.
I don't have those papers with me, so I can't.
So that's extracurricular. This is special.
May I ask a clarifying question? Did we do anything with the after-school clubs? Because I need to document this so I can change things.
All right, what does the committee think? We can reduce it by half at saving 14, or eliminate all budget support for after-school clubs at 28.
I'll make a motion, we eliminate the whole thing at 28. I hate to do it, but we're gonna have to cut somewhere else if we don't cut there.
Can I just remind the committee that includes things like we would have no yearbook, all that.
Yearbook can't be incorporated during the day? There can't be a class for that?
There used to be.
There used to be.
Right, but there's a stipend for the person, whether they're offered as a class or offered at the school, there's a stipend for the advisor.
How much is that? I would like a list of those.
Many high schools, because of what you need to fit in during your core curriculum time, have changed yearbook from being a class to being after school.
Can you tell us off the top of your head what those clubs might be?
There's yearbook, National Honor Society, Student Council, and then there's a whole bunch of the Blacksmithing Club, the Envirothon.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
These are the things that we go
These
to
are-
school
right,
for.
right.
I am done here. I have school of choice in Greenfield. This is.
Excuse me, we're all trying to make these decisions and we're all feeling awful about this. We've just got to make these decisions and figure out. We're not making them yet, we're just discussing things.
This is so not okay.
It's not okay with us either, that's why we're in this mess. Okay, so what are we thinking? There's a motion and a second?
I can't support cutting those. What's the motion?
No.
I don't know.
We need a chance to vote in a second. We don't
All right, so there's a motion, is there a second?
Yep.
There's a second.
Yes,
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion's defeated. All right.
I move we cut the 14,000, being half of support for.
And how do you figure which ones get?
I'm just uncomfortable about this because I don't really know what the clubs are. I mean,
That's
my
why I
kids
asked you
haven't,
to
I know,
tell
but
us.
my kids haven't gone here for 25 years and we're trying to make decisions. I want to see, I don't know, it just feels like,
They're listed in the teacher contract. They're listed in.
okay, I'll go back and look at the contract.
It's
All right.
a lot that they do for a lot of
Kids.
kids for
This is
a
how
very
people get into
small amount of
college.
money.
I don't know how you get rid of that. This is how people get into college.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's move on to another piece and see if it gets any easier. No, we voted on that.
No, you had a second motion to reduce it by 50%.
Okay, was there a second?
Sharon was the second.
Okay, all those in favor?
14.
Okay, opposed? All right, so let's vote it down.
So how about if we get a list of all the clubs before we do any more voting or anything else, so that we know what we're doing?
we're not knowledgeable enough about
Okay, so that's great. Let's move on through these pages and see what we need to go back and ask the admin team to come up with, okay? They've already worked a ton and a half and we're asking them to work 2 ton, but I think we have consolidated already art, music, and PE at the elementary schools. Am I correct on that or not?
That is correct.
So that saved the 88,000?
It was more
Thereabout?
than that.
It's already out.
Okay. Have we consolidated them to 4 days a week, or is it just contracts are out?
We consolidated, we cut that line by more than that amount.
Okay.
Well, the shared teacher salaries went from 460,000 to 232,000.
So all
that's
the
a lot of
specials
cutting.
have been worked on, correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll pass over that piece. So that gives us to restructuring options, which is cut preschool and move 6th grade to PVRS. We've done the moving 6th grade to PVRS. I mean to... No, I was thinking it was I'm thinking it's Pro Roads, but no, it's Bernardston Elementary we've moved 6th grade to. So on here is restructuring, cut preschool, or move 6th grade to PVRS. Those are 2. Cut preschool completely. We continue to provide required services for preschool students with disabilities with current specialist staff, OT, PT, and speech. Elimination of the preschool may have impact on future regular education and special education needs. That's one option.
And I don't have the number in my head, but 4 grants that subsidize preschool and the operation of preschool, as well as instructional assistant portion of it and portion of a teacher in 2 buildings, have been written, and we haven't received the money yet, but we have received the grants.
And the preschool teachers have gotten their contract.
And the preschool, thank you.
Okay. So that's not an option.
And if
Correct.
the kids, if the parents take their preschoolers into another district to
stay.
start,
They'll
they're
stay.
gonna stay there. So we're gonna.
Yeah. Jim?
And the 6th,
Pat, we're doing really important discussion and decisions in the 4th hour.
Exactly.
And my brain is limited to begin with. I can't comprehend anymore.
So we've been doing this for probably 4 months. And we've been asking questions and we've been moving on. It is now the 26th, 27th of June. When the heck are we going to make these decisions? We can't put them off forever and ever and ever. We've got to make them at some point.
We're also a volunteer board. We can't meet 4 hours a night.
I've been here since 4 o'clock. My brain is absolutely dead. And I have to be back at 8 in the morning to do the contracts. I can't stay here any longer.
And we
I
are
know
coming
that.
back on Thursday.
I know. So we have to, I'm not going to keep you here.
Ask our elementary principals their view on move 6th grade to PVRS?
I don't think.
Yeah. go ahead.
I know everyone defends something, but to do a decision like this without any advance warning, without including parents, without having a plan, without including teachers and middle school teachers, and how is it going to run, what is it going to look like, it can't happen now for fall. And happen well, exactly. Bernardston 6th graders will be Pearl Road 6th graders will be going to Bernardston.
I don't think we haven't voted on that.
That's in the budget.
It's part of the budget.
We voted on this budget.
Well,
How many
we
sit
cut a
in our
teacher.
Collins budget?
3.
So
4.
3 6th graders and 3 5th graders that will be coming down. Preschool But there were
That changed from just 6th grade, now it's gonna be 5th grade as well?
Pre-K is staying at Pearl Road.
Yeah.
And 5th grade and 6th grade will come down to Bernardston. We were reduced one classroom teacher at Pearl Road, and so we had to move to grade levels.
That makes sense.
And it made most sense. So the configurations stay the same. Pre-KK, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6 will come down.
That makes sense.
That's if we don't close the school.
Okay, so we have one more agenda item we really need to work on tonight. It is number 5, allow present superintendent's contract to end with pay, vote.
What does
that mean?
Ruth Miller has said that she would no longer be working at, until after the 11th of June. And she would come back the last 4 days and work because she owed us those 4 days. She will either take her pay, she says, for those last days and not show up, or she will take professional development. So I think it would be better, I don't know why what
does
professional
development mean?
I don't know either, but I would think it would be better to give her 4
What did
days
our
of salary.
attorney recommend?
What did our attorney recommend?
To pay her 4 days of salary.
I'll make a motion that we pay Ruth her 4 days' salary and let the contract run out.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
Can we go on record of saying we'd like to take the magic eraser and erase one of the zeros? Okay.
Can we
never
say
mind.
we erase those 4 days' salary?
I'd like to add to that, but I don't.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Sharon.
Second.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm supposed to meet with Pam.